3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasin the Racin.
And welcome back to another episode of Chasin the Racin. It's episode 259. And we're actually joined again in the studio by the double world champion James Toseland.
Is it 259? You've got to keep going back to all the previous guests now. You run out now.
Yeah, not quite, but yeah, we're
scraping the barrel with you, mate. It's been 5 years though, so I've got some new stories hopefully for it. I should have.
Yeah, so it's been obviously been on the show before. Got myself and Joe Ackroyd here. It's a bit of a different set of presenters to when you last did the show. Just before we kick off, obviously want to thank all of our sponsors who are on board with us and keep the podcast going. So we have a news. We're also joined in the studio by Marley, if you just heard that, everybody.
He's got the sneezes. No wonder with the weather outside.
Yeah, so we've got a new sponsor who's joined us from this episode onwards, which is WSC. So we're going to go into them a little bit later in the episode. And then, as always, JCT Truck and Trailer Rental. HGC Paintwork. And I'm just checking because I always get his initials the wrong way around, but he's I'm going to hold up this helmet because I believe that he actually did paint this helmet as well, or certainly one of many. But so Hayden Gibson, he's a good friend of all of ours and does paints our helmets stuff, and he's actually branching out now to do things like more kind of custom bodywork and stuff like that. And am I right in thinking, Grace, that he's doing a giveaway? So if you're a Gamma patron, which is like a £10 a month patron of Chasin the Racin, you can get entered into a draw to win a free helmet painting. So yeah, we'll obviously put all of his social handles and things in the chat. But yeah, go check him out. Have a look at the work he does. Does a fantastic job. Got my helmets painted off him last year as well, and he's done Chrissy's, Joe's.
Done mine for about 4 years now. He's mega.
Yeah.
I just give him free rein. I just give him a blank helmet and just say, "Do your thing, mate. You know what I like. You know what I don't like. Just make it look good." And I get a different design every time. It's cool. Yeah.
Keeps it fresh. Really great, and it's fantastic to see him branching out because I think it's not his full-time occupation, and if he can sort of get to the point that he can, then that would be fantastic for him. So yeah. All the best.
I always think as well, it took me a while to find someone. I always thought painting a helmet, it's going to cost me, 3 times what the helmet cost to buy in the first place, and it's not the case. Give Aidan a shout. He'll
sort you out.
Yeah, sorry, he's mega. He's mega. Just he's loves motorbike racing. He does it for the right reason. He's just a legend, isn't he? Which is such a nice lad. So yeah,
important. So
yeah,
great stuff. So yeah, speak to Hayden. If you're also not a Gamma patron yet, get joined up because chance to win a free helmet painting, which is great, and you'll get all of the additional content that you get along with that. So great stuff. So thanks guys for coming on board, and thanks guys for staying with us.
Yeah. Let's get into it. The thing is, we've had half the crack before we started.
I know.
And then
you turned up at 6:30 in the morning while I still have my porridge, mate.
It's all on me. This is all on me. I chose to have 2 kids, and like I've always said, if you haven't got kids yet, don't do it. It'll ruin your life. Because all I do is run around after 2 joyous little bundles of happiness. No, but I've got to get back for the school pickup, so I'm trying to organise this with you. And I said, can we come at 8 o'clock? I bet you life you live, you don't have to be up at 8, do you?
No, luckily not yet. I don't think I'm going to get ready with it too long though, because she started to ask the questions.
Is she?
Yeah. The clock's ticking, and you know what females are like when that clock starts ticking. So
well, if you want advice,
but I keep bumping into you, like people like you. It's the best contraceptive ever, isn't it?
Tell you, mate, it's a game changer. Jesus Christ.
So you
feels nice at the time, but then yeah.
I'm sure. For them 20-30 seconds.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
30 seconds, wow.
So I apologise for the early start, but yeah.
No problem at all, mate. No problem at all. I was expecting it. So your missus basically let you off with one of the school runs?
No, I've got to do both of them.
No, you haven't taken them to the school, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, I've left before all that chaos.
So you're just picking up today.
I'm up and out. And
I prefer that one.
I'm working. I've got to go to work.
To be fair, I enjoyed this start this morning, so I realised on the way down here, it's actually not very often I get to be in the car on my own anymore.
All right, Josh.
Just listen to music. and like I've been like carpool karaoke all the way down here, and I was actually
It's like a bit croaky.
a bit croaky. Yeah, phone on do not disturb. Work weren't ringing. They weren't ringing, and listened to some tunes on the way down. I loved it. So
Yeah,
thanks for letting us come this early.
Pleasure. Welcome to Sheffield, lads. Well,
how's things?
yeah, not too bad at all. It's been an interesting 5 years since we last spoke. Obviously, I just want to send my best regards to everybody involved with the family and friends, and just obviously with Chrissy. It was a from it being interviewed by you guys back in the day, and then seeing the podcast do so well, and then that horrendous incident. I text everybody involved just to see how sorry I was, because when we had that last chat, and always this podcast is great just for the lads to sit down and lasses to just chat how things are in this weird world of motorsport and motorcycle racing. And it's not a podcast as such, as where you kind of get the information from your guests. It's just a good old chin wag, and it helps both parties. And I remember I was given a book at the time 5 years ago, because I just moved from London up here. Literally, I'd only just moved into this place that we're outside now, and life was pretty difficult at that point in time. I'd recently just got divorced, and I'm just up here. So I remember the chat went a certain way because of that. And I got some really, really positive feedback from a lot of kind of like guys and middle-aged men at the racing. They came up to me and said, I listened to that podcast and it really helped me. So it's nice to be back in the saddle here again, because we didn't really realise how the conversation was going to go back then. Sometimes it just happens, doesn't it, that way? But I want to thank Chasin the Racin for giving me the opportunity to just chat through those kind of things. It always helps chatting through stuff, because those guys aren't too good with it sometimes, are we? So it's important that you guys do an important job. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think we're maybe a little bit different. We were just talking before we came on, weren't we, that when people come in here, it's not like sorry, dog's decided it's going to have a walk about now. It's not quite as formal as maybe other podcasts are, and you sort of get inside this little box, and it's just another world, isn't it? And you forget that there's cameras and lights and all the rest of it, and we just end up, I don't think people end up opening up to the vulnerabilities, but you're able to just feel chilled out and relaxed, and there's a lot of value in that. And as you say, I mean, we did a mental health podcast a couple of months ago now, and the feedback and outreach from that was like, thanks for addressing a point that we don't generally sort of go down, and I heard a quote the other day: most men live a quiet life of desperation.
There's nothing to do with this little trailer. There isn't, is there? We can cover everything if you want to, and it's nice for that. And it's all the podcasts that you do, there's always a gem, there's always something that we can learn, and that's the whole point of it, of conversation. There's always something that we can learn from people that are living kind of unusual lives that provide us with unusual emotions, which then kind of lead us down, especially with motorcycle racing, because the peaks and troughs are so severe, aren't they? We go from fatalities to being the best in the world, and there isn't many sports or many industries that we work in that those are the two kind of polar areas of possibilities. And it's incredible for that, but it's also difficult because of it.
We do live in, excuse me, I'm fighting off these lurgies that are going around. Kids, again. Disease-ridden things, bring that out. I was talking to someone last night who's from our world, and I was sort of sat in my living room, no TV on, just having a bit of a think to myself, and I thought, we do live in like this world is a world within itself, and it's just a mad little circus that unless you're part of it, you can't understand it. As someone outside of the sport, why do we do it? Why do these lunatics go around it like a hamster in a wheel? Why do they just keep going around these? Why do they do it to themselves? It's, unless you do it, don't try and understand it, sort of thing.
I was helping with a Gina Ray documentary yesterday, and they came up here, and I was being questioned, and that was the ultimate question, because obviously all these riders, especially people like Gina Ray, that are so close to for being fatal of his accident in Japan, and why on earth would you consider getting back in the saddle again, and what is it that the human instinct to kind of encourage us back to something that really nearly took our lives? And it's a really tricky one to answer. Obviously, unfortunately for humans, especially men predominantly, the closer to death that we get, the more alive we feel, right?
Yeah.
And we're addictive personalities as well. And I was kind of comparing it to like a drug addict.
It is.
If someone's on heroin, right?
Yeah.
And they live under the bridge in Sheffield, as long as they can get that gear, right? If they were given an option to live in a nice warm hotel room with a little job to do, when you are an addict, they would give all that up and still choose to be under the bridge.
Yeah.
So it's we are victims. Humans are victims to emotions, and we've designed things to in life that provide us with these emotions unnaturally.
Yeah.
And motorcycle racing is one of them, because riding a motorcycle around a racetrack at 200 miles an hour, it provides us with that level of ecstasy. It is that fun.
It's not normal.
That's the only way of justifying why, something that you're risking your life at, you still want to just have a go at it.
Do you think that was a factor in Jonathan saying enough's enough now? Because I read somewhere that after that last crash he'd had, he remembers the bike coming towards him and him thinking, I remember watching do not want that bike. I do not want that bike to hit me. And I'm sure he'd said it was like a switch had sort of gone where I thought, now I'm thinking like that. I've got I've got a family. I've got a life. I've done, really well for myself. I don't want this risk anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder if that it's as simple as that. It is as simple as there's nothing more to look into it than that. There comes a time where you don't want to get back in the saddle because
age is a big thing.
Yeah.
I've noticed, because I was only 29, 30 when I had the accident.
How old's Jonathan now?
Jonathan will be about 37, I think, 38.
I'm 36. I think he'd be nearly
39.
Not exactly old.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that we describe that as being old. You sort of describe you.
Sorry, because I interrupted you there, but you had it taken from you probably 10 years before it should have been.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, not at all. But naturally, my age, it just lessened the need and desire to want to go 200 miles an hour around a racetrack on a motorcycle to stay sane.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that age has given me that contentment and comfort of my thoughts. Because when I had to go cold turkey when I had my accident at 29, 30, it was far too young. I was racing against Biaggi and Bayliss that were winning championships at 40. So because of those guys winning at such to the latter part of their careers, I didn't even have a thought about finishing. So it was a massive, massive shock when I had to literally stop overnight. But for someone like Jonathan, the success that he had, the 6 championships on the bounce. I've just told you a little bit of a story about when I met, when me and Kanan Sofawoglu were teammates. We were talking about Toprak in the house earlier and how incredible he is. And
sorry, I was just buzzing on there.
And me and Kanan in Tenkate in 2007, I won the Superbike Championship and he won the Supersport Championship in the same year. And you don't take it all in, just how special your existence is, with a chance and an opportunity to be the best in the world at something. But all of the team as well have the opportunity of being the best in the world, best engineer, best chef, best truck driver, everything. So everybody arrives at the racetrack with a massive smile on their face.
Yeah.
And because there's so much effort that goes in to not just winning a race, winning a championship, it's a relentless consistency to it all to provide you with those results. And Jonathan Ray did that 6 years on the bounce. So the consistency and commitment level that Jonathan put in, as well as all of his team, to provide him with a motorcycle week in, week out that didn't break down, didn't do anything wrong or much wrong to not win championships. His life would... arguably on a bike that probably wasn't, towards the last few years, it wasn't the best package to be on either. And he still kept going out there. Yeah, he was something else.
Yeah.
That's why he's the most successful for sure. But once he achieved that, I think he must have had maybe an uttering that Kawasaki were going to go to Bimota. Obviously, he found out that Toprak was leaving to B&W, and he obviously followed Toprak on that Yamaha. behind him and in front of him, and saw that the bike was just as good as the Kawasaki, if not better in a few places, and moved and jumped ship at that point. And after winning 6 world titles with his age, he jumped on a bike, and the first test went okay in Jerez. And then, bless him, he had the crash at Phillip Island, which he got the injury. He crashed at Phillip Island both occasions on both years at the beginning of the seasons, which really hindered his momentum.
It was through Siberia, wasn't it?
Siberia first, and then it was Southern Loop the second one last year. And the bike obviously came down and smashed his foot. And I think it was just unlucky that the Yamaha wasn't as competitive as the other ones as it was the year before when he was following it, etc. And it was a bit difficult to get the results. And I think what he underestimated a little bit was he knew exactly what that Kawasaki was capable of in every single aspect of it. The braking, the turning in, mid-corner, exit, and acceleration. And he was able to extract 100% capability out the package with the confidence of Parariba at the side of him.
Yeah.
And going to Yamaha, different chief engineer, a bike that he didn't know where the limit was. And when you don't know where the limit of the bike is, and you want to go a certain speed that you used to, you end up in the gravel.
Christian's, we were talking about on our catch-up, weren't we, that Christian's gone from Kawasaki last year to Yamaha this year, and he said the biggest thing's not chassis, it's the engine. And he said you just have to ride it so differently. He said the Kawasaki felt like
fast.
You were riding a fast bike, you know, you're hanging onto the thing and it's screaming and shouting. He said the Yamaha feels slower, calmer, but the engine characteristics of how you use it is so different. And you got to think that Jonathan sat on that Kawasaki, well, he hasn't sat on it, he's been strapped to that thing for all those years. You become accustomed to riding a particular way, don't you? A particular style, a particular the way you ride them are completely different, because
especially in World Superbikes with electronics.
Yeah, massively.
Because what you do on the throttle is not what you'd normally do.
No.
So you can imagine how much trust you need.
Sykes was always the one that I used to think, fuck me, you have got so much faith, because you used to watch him and it would just be bang.
He'd rely on it.
Yeah. Not taking away from what he was doing, because what he did was amazing, but you could see that he was riding 100% to the electronics, wasn't he?
Well, the world class riders in World Superbikes ride a certain way. Tom Sykes was a stop to start guy.
Yeah.
That's why there wouldn't have been nobody ever beating him at Melbourne Loop and Goddard's.
Yeah.
Because they are the biggest stop-start corners you'll ever find in your career on any track.
Yeah.
And Tom Sykes was unbelievable around Donington Park because of that. But because of his style, it then pushed his electronics engineer to put a setting in the bike to be able to cope with that level of opening the throttle.
Yeah.
Because it was quite unusual. And every rider has a distinctive way of riding a bike and opening the throttle, which then the electronics engineers programs in to be able to give him the maximum amount of power to what grip you've got.
Yeah.
So depending on what they did do, you got your particular setting to cater for it.
Yeah.
Well, can you imagine Jonathan for 6 years? He rode the same, similar, all throughout that period. So Parariba knew exactly what percentage of throttle he needed. Even when he was 100%, Parariba put 96%.
Yeah.
Because that's all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you then join a different manufacturer with a different chief engineer and different electronics engineer and all the rest of it.
Who's been working with a different rider who goes a different way about it, with a different engine characteristics and a different chassis. And
where's the first round?
Phillip Island. Yeah.
Fastest track
on
the planet.
Yeah.
And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong big style. And hindsight's a wonderful thing in it, you know, but looking back, all those factors, I think, you know, it was understandable why Jonathan Ray, the 6-time world champion, was a bit frustrated that he wanted to go a certain speed because he knew he was capable of it.
Yeah.
But he didn't wait for the package to kind of, you know,
follow him in there.
Follow him and tune it into it, yeah.
He looks good on that Honda, though. In testing,
Jonathan ride everything. Jonathan will ride any motorcycle on the planet and he'll be within half a second off the lap record because he's that good. But it's the last half a second that team really need to dial in those electronics and traction control and all the rest of it to just make sure that it's safe enough to ride that fast, because unfortunately now you need the rider aids to allow you to do that consistently. You might get away with it for a lap or two, but It's your electronics engineer is possibly, arguably, the most important engineer in your garage these days.
Interesting as well, like you're sort of saying that, because one of the changes that he made from the first year to the second year of the Yamaha was crew chief, wasn't it? In the first year, you had Andrew Pitt, and forgive me, I don't know the second crew chief's name, but
Tom Yoich, was it, or Tom something? Yeah. Anyway,
but
we should know that.
We should know that. Apologies. How making a decision like that to move a person out of your program or out of your team into something else, like how big of a decision is that to do? Because it's not something you would take lightly. You're basically sacking someone, you're getting them out of their job. And I'm sure Andrew went on to do something with somebody else. Like, how do you even start to think that? Have you ever had to deal with that in your career?
I did. I had a massive, quite infamous one with
Colin Edwards, I did know that.
And MotoGP. And it's awkward because of what we're just talking about here, how important it is for an engineer to be able to dial that in, the percentages that you need to dial a motorcycle into the way you ride. It can take months, if not years, for him to get an understanding of exactly how you ride a motorcycle to give you what you need. Because there's a difference with a rider. I always remember one of the best engineers, he said, I'll give you what you need, not what you want. And when there was a bit of a conflict of interest between me and an engineer, that he used to say that, it's like, okay, fair enough, have it your way, and it usually worked out that way, but with Andrew Pitt, obviously he was Andrea Locatelli's engineer before Jonathan Rea came, and then they mixed it up within the team, and Andrea then got the new chief engineer within Yamaha, and then so it was Jonathan that inherited Andrew Pitt. So I don't know why that relationship came to an end with Locatelli, and then Locatelli's results went then a little bit better, but was that the capability of the engineer, or was it just because he was out of the shadow of Toprak Razgatlioglu?
Yeah.
So he had the confidence with a Jonathan Rea that was injured at the beginning of his Yamaha campaign. And then Locatelli got the better of him and stayed the better of him. Obviously, Jonathan had flashes of brilliance at Donington last year and such like that. But Locatelli got his bit between the teeth, and he had an opportunity to showcase himself against the best Superbike rider ever.
Yeah. And
he took it, and fair play to him. But it's just an example of how things can move and shake a little bit. Just for the rider to psychologically just have a reset. And another shot at it, and it can work out for you or not.
Do you, because you dipped your toe in working with Danny in World Supersport, did you find, as an ex-rider that's been there, you've done it, you've done MotoGP, so you've been absolutely to the pinnacle of the sport. Andrew Pitt did Grand Prix on 500s, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
So, Andrew's been, again, to that same level. Do you think that there's a strength that you can take there that perhaps a crew chief who hasn't done the riding side of stuff, or do you think it can be a hindrance because is there a strength or a weakness to it, in your opinion?
Well, I was Per Ariba's teammate back in
I forgot about Per, obviously.
99, because it was so long ago, nearly 30 years ago now, that I was teammate to Per Ariba, and he was a very fast supersport rider, very fast. And I think it does help because there's a bit of a unique language that riders speak about what the bike's particularly doing underneath them that wouldn't make sense to any normal person. When they're gesturing about if it's chattering or moving in a certain way. And if a rider kind of relays that information to an ex-racer,
you immediately go, turn one Magnicori, the front end. Yeah, you can relate. Yeah,
you can. Compared to just a lot of these chief engineers now that haven't raced are old electronics engineers that are used to reading data. So they're used to hearing a rider's feedback and what it feels like. Then they go to the computer and see what actually that then is happening to the bike. And then they're able to kind of figure out with the different languages that as long as it always backs it up on the telemetry, what he's saying, that it feels the front's too soft or something, as long as it backs it up on the telemetry, then you're okay. When it doesn't really back it up, I think at those moments, then ex-rider is important, because if it's not backed up on the telemetry, what the rider's saying, you've got to think out the box then, why is he feeling it? And I think then that's why an ex-rider can really kind of then delve into the other possibilities, because the old electronics engineer can only really go on what he's seen.
And that's when you see these clashes of, well, I'm telling you, you're not doing that. You're not you're using all the travel, or you're not using all the travel. Well, I'm fucking telling you, I can't turn the bike.
Yeah.
You're into that, aren't you?
Yeah, because, a rider might say, that it's a little bit soft on the brakes, but is braking a bit too late for the corner. So because you're braking a bit too late, then you're sacrificing your corner speed and the exit sometimes. So if you just brake a little bit earlier, just so you can kind of come off the brake a little bit earlier, and then that helps back the bike turn and stuff like that. An electronics engineer wouldn't be able to kind of like give you that feedback of how you can actually try riding a bit better.
Yeah.
Which is important as well.
There's a lot to be said about that, isn't there? And I think some riders are more capable than others. So one of my good friends, Jack Kennedy, he was operated basically as my crew chief this year in the F900 series. There's no real requirement for a crew chief, right? It's just not at that level. But so we've got good mechanics, but I would after every session and every evening we would do a track walk, and he would help us to decide what setup. And what used to blow my mind with him is, he's running at the front of a British Championship and doing super well and thinking about everything, and I'd worked with him before and know the level of detail that he goes into, and we'd be doing a track walk and he'd go, I've been thinking actually on your bike what you've just said, you need to do this, and we'll try it and it will be better. And I think, how can you have the capacity to race at that level, think about your own setup, and also you're thinking about mine, and I know the levels are very different, and then you hear some riders who couldn't. Some riders are just naturally gifted, aren't they? And they can ride things that aren't as good, and the effort goes in a different way. And you can see the people that might make a good crew chief. I think Jack would be a fantastic crew chief in the future. But then there's other people. I'm trying to think of an example of someone like who's just maybe Billy McConnell or something in our paddock, who's just got like raw talent and just puts it all out there. But is he maybe the most technically minded person in the world? I don't know.
Billy's actually quite...
Yeah, I know. It's probably a bad example,
but,
isn't it?
But there are, you sit and work with people, or you sit in a garage and you can hear someone, you going, fucking give them a clue, give them something to work with. It's just shit. It doesn't, my playing that I do in World Endurance, we have the benefit of being able to overlay 4 riders on the data. So it makes it a lot easier for the data guys and for the crew chief to ultimately try and get us where we need to be, because we can overlay everything with GPS. And I suppose in like Jonathan's case, then it's down to the relationship with him and Andrea, whether they want to share data. If they can share data, maybe they can, as you say, ride the bike differently, which I would think Jonathan probably had to do. Learn to do with that Yamaha.
Absolutely would. But to introduce something new into your riding style, and then input that into a new bike, and ride completely on the limit, but you are reliant upon rider aids to keep you safe from the limit, and if they're not dialed in completely together and gelled as one unit, you are going to make mistakes, and the bike's going to protest because it's not ready for that. The Yamaha wasn't ready for Jonathan's riding style, and it didn't get enough time because of the accidents in Phillip Island to kick both seasons off. It was the worst case for it, and I was saying, with the kids and the family and the age, and also with Locatelli being so strong at the side of him, and also Remy Gardner having some fantastic races as well, and Damiagati got there in the end because he was ill at the beginning of the season, but. I think he realised that his best still wasn't where he wanted it to be, and unfortunately for all riders, it comes to the day where you put everything into it and it just doesn't happen anymore, unfortunately. And for those 6 years, it definitely did, and then unfortunately just the last 2. But I'll tell you something about Jonathan Rea. In 10 years' time, no one will ever talk about those Yamaha years.
No.
He will be the 6-time World Superbike Champion and legend of World Superbikes. And everybody will be thankful for what he gave us in the motorcycling world. And it was an incredible run, which I'm not sure anybody will be able to replicate that. I mean, how long did it take to anybody to beat Foggy's 4? That was Jonathan, obviously.
Yeah.
And obviously that was 1999.
99 was his last one, wasn't it? Yeah.
And then obviously Jonathan Rea would have been 5-time world champion in about, 15, 16?
Yeah.
You know, so just shows you just how difficult it is to not just win 1, but 4 or 5 or 6 is incredible.
I think I kind of admire Johnny Rea more for his Honda years. I just thought he was a legend then, and I loved watching him. I suppose at the time on like what wasn't the best package, and he did like amazing things on it. So when he went to Kawasaki, I almost expected him to win, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, the Kawasaki was the bike, wasn't it?
It was like, well, he's going to win on
Tom
that.
Tom Sykes obviously won the championship the year before and all the rest of it by half a point. No, he lost by half a point, didn't he? The second one, but it was the package to be on, wasn't it, at that point in time? And riding a motorcycle that doesn't really want to do what you want to do with it can really hone your skills to develop your riding ability to be better, because you've got to get used to riding completely on the edge of grip all the time. And as we've seen with the flat track training now through the winter time with all these professional riders, they're all practicing on very, very low grip and practicing sliding the front, scrubbing the speed off on the rear and on the front of the bike. And that wasn't really a discipline that we, when I was youngster, we never did any of that. It was a bit of motocross and trials, but we never did that flat track, semi-slick, low grip training where you're launching it into these corners and you counter steering to find the grip with the front as well as the rear. And Jonathan Rea was, he honed his skills on a Honda that didn't really want to do what he wanted to do on it, and then he transferred that extra level of talent onto the Kawasaki, and it worked, didn't it? I
think it's amazing that his career's we've talked about this on episodes before, but a huge fan of Johnny, and I really love to see him now doing the Honda job, and I think I watch his vlogs religiously, and I really enjoyed his last vlog and Jake's last vlog of them, and I think he'll really bring something, maybe even, I'm sure he'll bring something to the team from a technical point of view because he's got all that experience, but I think for Jake as well, it'll be amazing to just know that you've got that experience there and doing that riding for you behind the scenes and all of that stuff. So I'm really excited to see how that as a relationship kind of develops, and to see him kind of go full circle from riding with Robin Appleyard on a Honda with Red Bull to going through to the factory team and then being 6-time world champion, and actually he's kind of back at Honda and that effort's run out of Louth as well, and it's pretty cool. It is. It's kind of come full circle for him, hasn't it? And I remember 30 years ago next year, I remember 30 years ago, 2 years, so 28 years ago, I met this girl called Tasha, who was the team coordinator for Castrol Honda when I was 17 years old, and I just signed Aaron Slight and Colin Edwards with the Superbike riders. I was teammate to Michael Paquet, just starting my first year in World Championships, and the team coordinator was Tasha. Really? Yeah. And she worked in the restaurant in Phillip Island because she's from Phillip Island. Yeah. She worked in the Italian restaurant in Phillip Island, and Neil took a little bit of a shine to her in the restaurant, and you'd got conversating and said, would you want to join the team and be a coordinator, because she was studying media or something at college at that time. So so me and Tash have known each other for the best part of 30 years, and then seeing them get together with Johnny and getting married. I knew Johnny was in safe hands because she's such a great girl and great mom and great wife. So and I'm not surprised that the consistency of Jonathan as well, as sometimes it is with great men, there's always a great woman behind them, and Tasha was that because she's quite a little bit older than Jonathan, and I think that experience and maturity really kind of help Jonathan behind the scenes to be, because he's not that overly confident naturally, Jonathan. He does need a bit of an arm around him, and that's why Perriba was so good. I mean, look what Perriba's doing to Alex Lowe's at the minute. I've just been out to Spain training. I haven't been training, but I took Chloe Jones, so I'm just started managing, and I took her out. The Lowe's brothers have been so generous this winter because they've lent Chloe the bike in Spain. And it was really interesting because Alex and Sam were together training, and it was really interesting. Identical twins. They're so different. So different. I didn't realise, because I've always mingled with them separately, and I always thought, they look similar, they are similar. But when they are together, it's quite incredible on how different they've got little friends that help them out, engineers and stuff. And it was really fascinating to see how their engineers separately spoke to them both
in an encouraging way to get the best out of them as their team members around them. Sam, I noticed, I don't want to give too many secrets away because obviously, it's their thing behind the scenes, but Sam is more, it seems to be, more of a arm around you, come on mate, that was a great effort kind of thing, and just kind of always just giving him a nudge to convince him a little bit that he is special. And he is special. I'm looking forward to seeing Sam because I think on that Ducati he can be on the podium quite a few times and challenging for race wins. But Alex, super confident.
Yeah.
If they're both sat down, Alex would have his kind of leg on the table, and Sam would be kind of,
knees together, nursing a cup of tea.
If I could
quietly,
kind of like describe it, to describe them individually like that, it was that. And
you hit the nail on the head because we got Alex on a couple of years ago, and he said me and Sam are so different. I've known him, we started all racing 125s together, but obviously they've sort of gone in their direction quite quickly, and I never became successful, so that's that's two different things. But Alex said, with Sam, if he gets a load of shit heckling him online, he's such a nice, quiet, reserved guy that he can't deal with it
I can imagine
very
that.
well. It impacts him. He said, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And Alex just sat there, he was practicing on a Husqvarna, and we said, do you not think, do we need to, fuck them, Kawasaki will be all right. They haven't got a bike they can give me anyway, so I don't care. Just a bull in a china shop, but love him for it. And I think, like you say, so funny with the two of them. I mean, Sam does quite a lot helping younger riders behind the scenes as well. I think Alex does as well, but he was saying, Sam does it doesn't want any credit, doesn't want anybody to know that he's doing it. Just there's a few quid, and I can see a bit of talent. He's at the end of the phone. He said he's just such a nice. This is Alex talking about his own brother. He's such a nice lad. Yeah. He said, whereas I am what I am. If you don't like me, I really don't care.
No, I got that completely, and obviously they're not far from me at all. They're only originally from Lincoln. I know they're down in Derby area, aren't they now? But they're Lincolnshire lads, and
it's so good to see him doing what they're doing in a World Championship, though. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing the Lowe's brothers this year. I think the Bimoto, if it could just take a step up, always Phillip Island. Alex is one of the best ever around Phillip Island. We know he was leading the championship on the Kawasaki a couple of years ago after a couple of wins, and the Bimoto took a little bit of, it was a bit of a teething problems there for the first round last year. But watch out for the Lowe's brothers this year. Like we were talking about with Andrea Locatelli, once he got out the shadow of Toprak, and I think Alex is without the shadow of Jonathan in the Kawasaki camp.
He's growing.
Spread his wings a little bit and get his chest puffed out.
He believes in himself. Yeah. And like you have to unfortunately have a bit of swagger, because to truly believe in yourself that you can be the best in the world, unfortunately you can't walk around without looking like you've got a carpet under each arm, And but I think Sam's a little bit more of a silent assassin. He'll kind of like come through a little bit sheepish, like a little bit nervous about the whole thing, but then when he gets helmet on,
just slit your throat.
So
for me, that it was Sam last year for me in World Superbikes was probably the story that never quite happened but has all the ingredients to happen. And he's the most unlucky human being. I don't know if he needs a horseshoe over something or a black cat or whatever it is, but
same as Jonathan Ray's situation. He's ridden Moto2 bikes for a decade. Now he's on a superbike with a lot more horsepower. So what the electronics engineers are trying to do with Jonathan from a Kawasaki superbike to a Yamaha superbike, can you imagine the electronics engineer for Sam with 130, 40 brake horsepower? Maybe a bit more, 150.
150 probably to 225-ish, 230.
So whatever Sam is doing naturally for the last 10 years, and now what he wants to do, that's why it's caught him out. But I think he's figuring it out, and you can tell he's figuring it out.
He's intelligent.
He was leading races in the first couple of rounds in his first ever season in Catalonia, I remember, right? And then obviously he was right up there on the podium for this year. But a win's coming for Sam.
Sorry, I feel like I'm not letting you get a word in.
No, I'm really enjoying it. You carry on, guys. Actually, just want to quickly interrupt this episode to welcome our new sponsor, WSC Performance, who are an online-based performance website for motorcycles. So they do everything from sort of Brembo and SBS. They're also a stockist of Evotech and a load of other premium parts. They're very involved in racing as well. So they've been long-term sponsors of Declan Connolly, who races in the National Superstock 1000 Championship. And they also are heavily involved in sponsoring and running a rider in the F900 series, which is obviously very close to our heart. So we're absolutely delighted to have the WSC family on board. We'll put the website in the in obviously the description of all of our videos. Another huge incentive to become one of our patrons is they're going to be offering giveaways and discounts and things to Patreon members. So if you're not already a Patreon member, get signed up to get access to the giveaways. And also, if you're in the market for anything new for your motorcycle, replacement, performance, upgrade, whatever it might be, go and check out the website WSC Performance, and they'll look after you.
We were talking about the move across for Jake Dixon and for Miguel Oliveira
and some Kiyat.
But I'd said to these guys, to Josh and to Christian, who do you think is going to find this harder with that change? Just sticking with, your Moto2 and your MotoGP category, between Jake and Miguel, because and sort of the unanimous decision was that it'll be Miguel will pick it up quicker just because he's used to higher horsepower. But I've thought about it quite a lot, and I think they've both got a very similar challenge, because I think Miguel is conditioned to riding. How many years was he on a MotoGP bike? 7 years. To then come across onto a production bike, it's a bit like how Sykesy had to try and come across onto a British Superbike from riding a World Superbike. The difference, they're going, oh, well, it's 1,000cc, it's a Superbike, but the difference is just, there's going to be a part of him that naturally goes, okay, well, I'm riding a big bike, that's how you ride a big bike. Whereas Jake's kind of,
well, he came from BSB, right? So he came from British riding Superbikes.
Yeah, we sort of didn't touch on that last time. We kind of didn't mention that, but we've sort of not forgot. But that is a big point, isn't it?
And on Pirellis, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Would have been, yeah.
So that's a big thing. Because to be competitive, when you've got the talent, to be truly competitive at world level especially, the two main aspects you need to be an expert on is what tracks you're on, the knowledge of the tracks, every single corner and blade of grass. You need to know every bit of undulation on that circuit and what the differences in tarmac or asphalt, or whatever name you want to put to it. Every change of grip in every single corner, you need to understand the circuit completely. And also with the tyres, because they go together. So you need to be able to get the best out of a motorcycle. You need to push a motorcycle to its limits with what grip it's got. Because the limit of any motorcycle is what grip it has. I remember in MotoGP, when we put the qualifying tyres in, we were 2 seconds a lap faster instantly.
That's insane, isn't it?
2 seconds. So you can imagine how that moved the goalposts in between corners, and the corner speed in the middle of the corners, and the setting on the bike that was different for qualifying it was to racers. So Jake's got a bit of a heads up about what a production superbike feels like. I'm sure it's still in the muscle memory somewhere. The one thing that worries me about Miguel Oliveira is how emotional he was at Portugal, of the send-off that he had. It was as though he was retiring. Now, a rider to have that much upset as though an era is ending on such a devastating level that it was so upsetting that he was losing his opportunity in MotoGP. I don't know if you can find that fire inside you again and motivation inside you, that true, I need to win Superbikes.
That's really interesting you say that.
Yeah, I would have never have thought about that. I wouldn't. Yeah.
I think about it the other way.
Yeah.
I think that's almost like he's accepting that, like you say, the curtain's closed on that. I have to make this work. I have to make this work. This has to work, because if this doesn't work, I'm all out.
Just depends how much of a pension it is.
Yeah.
In simple terms.
Yeah.
Is he coming to World Superbikes as a full reset, and I want to win World Superbikes as much as I wanted to win MotoGP?
Yeah.
And because it does always seem a bit of a downstep, because the elite class is MotoGP, psychologically for MotoGP riders, it's not easy. Because not many have succeeded into World Superbikes. We always talk about Superbikes not really doing the business in Grand Prix. But when Grand Prix riders come, there ain't been many that have succeeded.
No.
So it's...
but arguably they're a little bit further on in their career, aren't they? They're maybe a little bit longer in the tooth than what
it's
Miguel
experience.
Is. Yeah.
You look at Kyle Ryde, that came for last British Superbike champion. You look at Bradley Ray when he first came. if you do not know the bikes, the electronics, the tyres and the tracks, it doesn't matter just how talented you are. Because the difference of level of talent between a car ride and the front runners in World Superbikes, it's that.
Yeah.
It really is. But look at just doing a one-off race as a wild card without the experience of the packages and working with the teams and the tyres there and the bikes that you're on with electronics. You're last.
Yeah.
It's why you don't see it anymore, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Because the
It's a
package
shame.
is so important, and you need, like you say, familiarity with it as well.
I think the packages need to be more similar, because it was wonderful, especially for people getting opportunities in the future. I remember back in my day, right? The
Hey, lad.
The World Superbike lads used to come to Donington and Brands and stuff like that, and they were petrified on Friday morning for FP1 because we'd all been there a week before.
Yeah.
Well, we'd got up to speed, we'd got the tyres all sorted, and then we'd got the suspension settings all sorted. We'd got the same bikes as them, more or less, a year older, but they were competitive.
When you say that, sorry, just to clarify, so when you say you think the packages need to be, you mean the BSB package and the World Superbike package?
National championships to the worlds.
Yeah,
So
we had a really deep conversation about this last
And
week. didn't we?
I've done nothing but think about it because you and Christian said that it should, just give your take on it.
I can see it from both sides. So, from a rider's perspective, the lack of opportunity to go up, which is ultimately created by this disparity in packages and machinery, I get the frustration as someone who's not in the position, but would aspire to be, and you do when you're a kid, right? I really do get that. And actually, as a spectator, it's also not great to see, because, you know, when people used to do 125 Grand Prix and 250s, and there'd always be a British wildcard or whatever, and same in you know, like yourselves going to Brands Hatch for World Superbikes, and it's fantastic. But I can also see, from a promoter's perspective, why it's advantageous for it to be so different. And in a way, I can also see that it elevates BSB in a way, because in the past you might have compared BSB and World Superbikes because there was similarities, and you would say, well, that's lesser than that, which it is, right? It's a national championship. But actually, it feels like two very different concepts in a way that could be massively positive to the careers of people who will always exist in BSB. So I kind of get both sides of it, but is it stopping British talent progressing through the sport to world level? 100%. You can't really, you can't argue that.
You see, I think you that is basically what you'd said the first time round, and I kicked myself after we'd finished, and I thought, I wish I'd argued with you more, because
I'm not your wife, Joe.
no, but it's something I feel really passionately about, is that I think as a country, whether it's Olympics, and I'm shite with words, so this might come out wrong and people are listening going, what the fuck's he talking about? I think as a nation, as a country, we have a duty within our sports to give our athletes the absolute best chance to go onto a world stage and prove that we are the best in the world. That's what sport's about. Sport is about, it's not about taking part, it's about being competitive, and it's about winning. That's why athletes do what they do and commit themselves to 5 a.m. starts and smashing themselves to pieces and nearly dying doing something they love. It's because for the sport to win, they want to win, that drive. And I think to have a championship that ultimately stunts the potential of what that career can be. Now, I don't know how to fix it. That's the problem. Because if you say, okay, well, BSB, let's open up the rules now. Let's open up the rules to bring back that, to level up that transfer between BSB and World Superbikes, you're immediately going to lose 75% of the BSB grid, because the budget needed to run a World Superbike spec. It's a complete game changer in what those teams' infrastructure are going to have.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's not, Stuart Higgs can't sit there and say, do you know what, we're going to go World Superbike rules. Because there's going to be teams who go, we can't afford to do this now.
Which is what drove it in the first place.
Yeah, it is.
So I understand
Just
it, but I just feel like and I sound like an old bastard saying it now, but the days when you were able to make that, like you say, go to Brands, go to Donington, and have all the World Superbike lads sat there thinking, fuck me, Toseland's here.
Yeah, and also
his
just
wild card in this one.
Any BSB champ, right? The World Superbike riders feared the BSB champ.
Yeah,
and it was great because of that. You know, Hodgson's podium back in the day in 2000 when he pipped Keeley on the last lap. And well, like I say, on Friday mornings in FP1, FP2, they were getting up to speed with us because we'd been there the week before, kind of thing. And we were a real challenge because the bikes were similar and the packages were similar, because the talent's always been similar. But it's if you get a wild card of the BSB champion like we did last year with Kyle, and he's on the back of the grid and is second half 2 seconds off a lap, it's not showcasing the national championship in a good light. And then if the young kids aren't beating Kyle, then they've got no chance, because we have to have people getting promoted and showcasing themselves really well to give everybody else that's in the slipstream of those riders that are coming through the ranks to keep the credit of everything. Well, he was near him as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, I only got into MotoGP because Troy Bayliss went to Valencia in 2006 and won as a wild card, and I was beating him that year. So everybody thought, well, Toseland must be all right then. Let's have him in as well.
That was an outstanding race, that for
you know,
yeah.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
The people kind of getting a promotion or doing a wild card and showcasing themselves showcases the championships below it to getting opportunities, and it's gone. No one's looking. I mean, Shaky was a bit of a pain in the arse for everybody in the UK for years.
Yeah.
Winning all those championships, and Shaky'd done his Grand Prix career and he'd done his World Superbike career a little bit, and then he found himself dominant in BSB because of his level. He should have been more in the Worlds. Shaky, obviously.
Yeah, it never sort of all tied together, did it?
Not really. Just wrong place, wrong time, because he was very, very talented, as we know. But again, if you couldn't beat Shaky for all those years, you weren't getting an opportunity because Shaky didn't really kind of kick it off at the world level, you know. So, so that didn't reflect too good on all the youngsters. Now we're still talking about, because everybody underneath Shaky were the youngsters that were coming up with quite talented that should have had made the jump earlier.
Yeah.
But everybody ever had a reference of Shaky. Well, if you couldn't beat Shaky, then you weren't getting, you know what I mean? It's sometimes timing, but I think the bikes, it would be so much help. It would help so much if the bikes were similar. So when there is wild cards again, the BSB champions and the one on the podiums can just get amongst it in the top 10 and have look like they've got some potential, because it's so expensive racing. All the costs were cut to try and just keep involvement in it from teams downwards. And, to take on a rider that you've got no inkling of what potential they've got at world level, the teams aren't going to invest, are they?
Yeah.
And then, we've got the situation now where riders are having to bring 300, 400, 500, 600 grand to even do the job. We would know the Scott Redding story, and it's like, it's getting a little bit unsustainable in places. For sure.
So do you think the answer is for World Superbikes to come down or for BSB to go up?
Well, I think in general, the manufacturing world of motorcycling and motorcycle racing, it's going to go through such a big changing period. Are we all going to go to electrification?
I fucking hope not.
In the future.
Sorry.
Or, we know with the emissions policies that the governments are setting that you couldn't even sell an R1. I think it's going to be within the brackets now. It's going to be back on sale again, but it was just sold as a track bike.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So Yamaha really are only manufacturing a bike that you can take on the track and you can't sell. Well, that's not going to work out for a company, is it?
It's borderline not production racing in that sense, is it? Because actually what you're building is something that is
a track bike.
Yeah.
So this is the start of a whole new generation of what we are going to build and sell and what we promote on the track. And it's going to be fascinating what happens to it, because we've not really ridden on the track with what manufacturers make their money on and keep the business afloat on for years. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, it was win on Sunday, sell on Monday, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's not the case anymore. And to buy what Iker Lecuona and Nicola Bulega is going to ride this year, well, you're going to need about €60,000.
Yeah.
And back in my day again, a 1,000cc superbike was kind of 8, 9, 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
And wages haven't gone up that much compared to the 80s and 90s, but the price of the bikes has gone up 5 times.
I rode a V4R for Fast Bikes magazine about 3 years ago around the Isle of Man, just on the closed roads. We just went and did a test, and it was that a BMW S1000M, whatever, I get the letters around. Yeah, the carbon one. And the top of the range blade. And we just, to live with it, to ride with it, we had to sort of give our feedback on as a bike, not a race bike, as a road bike. And the Ducati won everything. It was lovely to ride, a stunning thing. But it was with the exhausts system that was on it as well. It was 60 grand. Well, who's got 60 grand to spend on a bike? You've immediately made the marketplace for that about that big, haven't you?
Yeah.
People aren't spending 60 grand on a car.
Yeah. Well, it's one reason why Ryan Vickers has found himself out of a ride, because there was kind of loads of stories. Was it a 2-year deal or was it not a 2-year deal? Was it 1+ or 2+? But I think one of the major factors was that team in particular. They didn't quantify just how much more expensive it was going to be to run the brand new Ducati with everything, and all of a sudden the budget that Ryan was able to bring didn't meet that, so they were then looking for somebody else that could bring that amount of money in, and so it's that's where some riders, that's the situation that some riders are in, just because of the cost of these production bikes now.
And how sad is that in general? And I guess, to my point before, I've kind of played devil's advocate a little bit. So Ryan,
have I hurt your feelings?
No, not at all. No, it's just a reality. I'd love to see it, but I kind of understand. In a way, there's not a paid career in World Superbikes until you are at a certain level. But Ryan came back here and is going to earn a good living in BSB.
The World Superbike job,
which is a shame in a way.
They've got to go with X amount of personal sponsors, buy the ride, and live off the remaining, haven't they? So they're dependent on a huge amount of personal sponsorship,
or certainly to make the step.
Ride.
Yeah, certainly to make the step,
which requires a certain result.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants a return in their investment.
With the exception of someone like Carol Abraham, where it's family money that can stand that.
There's not many of those, though, is there?
No,
there isn't many.
Maybe Grace will have to bleep this out, but so we'll bleep that name. He was saying to me, Tenkate wanted him in World Supersport. It's €300,000. We want you, but you also need to bring €300,000.
Yeah.
And I said, is that for a year or 2 years? He said, no, that's just for a year. It's just fucking ridiculous, and the caliber of him, and that's the level of the conversation that you're having to have. It's
unsustainable.
Yeah.
Especially, it's not cheap to go racing. The teams need to find it. Since tobacco was banned for advertising, because back in the 70s and 80s with the tobacco sponsorship in the 90s, everything was kind of developed on a certain level and a certain scale with the funding that were coming through the doors, and it was a bit of a false economy. And then when it was banned, the bike production cost, the materials that were used to build motorcycles, the money the engineers were able to earn in the garage, the truck drivers' wages, it was all on a certain level because the teams had a certain budget
because of the sponsorship.
But when that was pulled, and then, obviously energy drinks and all the rest of it, they've kind of foot the bill for it all, but not quite at the same level. Everything has kind of developed as far as technology goes, and obviously new technology is always going to be expensive. But without the kind of sponsorship levels meeting it at the same speed, it was always going to have a problem with the economics of the whole thing. And that's what we're finding. And it's just getting to the point now where you cannot afford to invest £400,000 into one season of superbike racing, when to earn £400,000 you probably be needing to finish in the top 5 of the world.
Yeah.
Well, if you're on a bike that can finish top 5 in the world, okay, I'll have a shot at it for the possibilities of my future. But there aren't too many teams and bikes that can finish in the top 5 of the world, and they're the ones that are asking for it. So you're asking for 400 grand. You haven't had a package that finished in the top 5 for 10 years. What makes you think that you're valuing
you've put your value on the team? Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense on paper, does it? And
it's a very bad business model.
It is.
If you're
and you're just going to have to be super, super, super lucky that someone very, very wealthy that puts that into that investment into you. And you've just got to hold you. Look, like Ryan. Look, Ryan's a perfect example. of a very, very talented rider. On his day in BSB, he was clearing off, and comes into Worlds on a satellite Ducati that finished in the top 6 a few times, top 10 though. So on paper, you're on one of the better satellite bikes with potential of finishing inside the top 10, top 8, top 6 if you really rode well. And then if you really showcase yourself of being in that top 8 consistently, week in, week out, on brand new tacks and all the rest of it, then all of a sudden, you don't get promoted into the factory team necessarily, but you get a free ride.
Yeah.
You know? But unfortunately, these teams and the packages, the satellite packages, because the problem that we don't know is every year is how much all the factory teams move on.
Yes.
Right? Especially this year, because no one's had any dry time, so no one knows any data from where things are at. But people are going to fly to Australia in a week or so, and they're going to go around Phillip Island for the first time in the dry. And the bike that you've paid 400 grand for, it's a year-old Duke or year-old Yamaha or year-old something, and you come across the line and you're 1.5 to 2 seconds off, and you know you've not done a too bad a lap.
Yeah.
And honestly, Phillip Island is the worst track of making you realise I'm having a tough year or I'm having a cracking year, because there ain't no hiding around it, right? Yeah. You hold your breath on a good tyre around Phillip Island, right, and you stick it in there, right? You could do it on a fast bike, you can get a decent lap time. If it ain't rocking and rolling at that, you're done.
Yeah.
All year as well.
Yeah.
Because Phillip Island transfers to everywhere. You know, if you're on a good package, it always seems that way anyway.
Yeah.
And, your 400 grand could easily, I mean, look at Scott Redding last year. You remember all the promotion, he didn't have a day off his training. No days off was his motto. And the shift he put in through the winter time on trying to get his reputation back and his confidence back after the BMW saga. And he came and he was in the top 3, top 4 in the races.
Had an outstanding start to the year.
Unbelievable, Phillip. Yeah. And I thought, brilliant. He's on the Ducati again that he got obviously so good results on before, but as the weekends went on and he had a couple of crashes and a couple of technical problems with his bike, and then the opportunity of possibly finishing on the podium consistently that year went quickly off a cliff, and then he was responsible for paying for it all very, very highly. It quickly went, I've had no days off. This is my maximum. The best we can hope for is the Phillip Island weekend with this package. It's going to be really tough beyond that. I'm not going to be able to get into the factory team. I'm not going to be able to afford another year of this, because I'm in round 3 or round 4, and I'm already struggling to meet the invoices. Yeah. What's that going to do to the mentality of the riders? Because you've got nowhere to go then, have you?
Yeah.
You've put your 100% maximum in. It's not kind of working out on the track as you need to, and it's costing you far too much money to sustain.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Never mind interesting. I'm happy that Taron's got another bite of the cherry, because we had him on last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we'd sort of finished the pod and he was on the job hunt, and it didn't look like things were necessarily going to pan out.
No,
maybe like they were hoping.
I'm so pleased for Taz, because again, British Superbike Champion 21, 2021. It wasn't 21 when he won, but he took the gamble of just getting into the paddock and went to World Supersport first, because he didn't have an opportunity, really a strong one in Superbikes, and he went for the MIE Honda obviously, and there was a new CBR 600 kind of coming out, and it was promised the world, and as we know the results of it. He got his just desserts at Most in the mixed conditions, and he got that victory, which was incredible for him, which then got him promoted into the Superbikes, but in the same team on the Honda. And the MIE Honda has not been competitive for many years, but he was in World Superbikes, and he was learning the tracks, and he was learning how to travel around the world and get used to the different food and cultures and all the rest of it. And it just got too much for him though, and he ended up having to say that I can't come racing anymore, giving it my all, and only having the possibility of the results that the package is capable of. Because every rider on the grid in any, it's all relative really, from national championship to world championship. If you're really serious about your job and you put absolutely everything into it, it's really disappointing, isn't it, when the results don't come?
At every level.
Yeah, in life.
But that goes back to that thing. The reason that everybody does what they do that's competitive is because they want to do well.
Yeah.
They don't want to run around at the back.
Yeah.
They don't want to make up the numbers.
Yeah.
You know.
And we take it really badly, don't we, as humans, when we don't achieve the things that we feel we should do with the effort levels that we put in.
Yeah.
And when it comes to riding motorcycles and the risks involved, when it doesn't happen, it's really disheartening because of the risk that you're putting in as well to try and to get them. So he decided to pull away from that project, and then just as that happened, Scott Redding found himself in the situation we've just been talking about, with the costs increasing, results not able to improve, and it just overlapped to a certain point. It wasn't sustainable, and he went back to BSB, obviously, and then the MGM team, they actually wanted to pull out of World Superbikes. The boss, Michael Galinsky, he'd kind of done his stint in the championship, but I heard he was just ready to kind of retire. And just at the point where Taz pulled out of the Honda project, he had a possibility of being the rider. And sometimes the stars just align for you in life, don't they? And he jumped on it at the Hungarian round, and he was inside the top 6, wasn't he, in the race? And just Taz was back, and he was on a package that was able to showcase what he was actually possible or capable of. And everybody was so chuffed, because anybody that knows motorcycle racing, that knows the Mackenzie family, knows that they salt the earth, and they are they're, you know, especially now Mackenzie is racing royalty. And it's, you know, Taylor and Taz, they're such lovely lads. They deserve everything they get because of that. And he had a chance opportunity to meet the CEO of Optical Express through last year, David Mulsdale, who's a fantastic guy, who's got the foundation up there. If you want to see a collection of motorcycles and cars, get to the Mulsdale Foundation. It's off the scale what cars and bikes are in that, and that's the foundation of Optical Express, and Optical Express are going to be sponsoring Taz on that Ducati. And I really, really hope that it's a partnership that works. He's got great backing behind him, so Taz is not worried about funding it himself. He can literally get on a motorcycle, go into the back of the garage, and know that bike is probably going to be better than him until he masters it. Well, there's not a better feeling for a rider, is there? You know, and you know that the bike is capable of finishing in the top 6.
That was going to be my next point. Was I so badly want that package to be what we were just talking about before, where it's not the factory package, it's the next band down. You're going to regret letting that. Just for the listeners, it's not a Chihuahua.
Let me move my little boat folder out the way for you,
She's having
sweetheart.
a bit of a mooch about.
Oh, bless
Marley.
Come on, Marley.
She's a bit down.
Let's have a cuddle.
I so hope for Taz that package is going to be just that step down that allows him to sit himself week in, week out in that top 6, top 8, that gives those factory teams enough confidence that he's the kid we can give the next chance to.
Yeah.
You know,
and he's
really
got, again, as the stars align in racing as well, what a fabulous opportunity it is when Ducati's bringing a brand new motorcycle out and everybody has it.
Yeah.
So from the factory team to the satellite team, you know, Alvaro Bautista hasn't opted to move from the factory team to Barney Racing for nothing. He knows that the bikes should be very, very similar because they're all the same when they all come out the crate, you know. So what a fabulous opportunity it is for Taz, and I hope that the difficult life lessons of going motorcycle racing and not getting the results that you desire for such a long time, that can just chip off a little bit of confidence and a little bit of spark, because that one final piece of the jigsaw puzzle that allows you to be the best you can be, it's not something you can quantify. It's just something that happens, that falls into place when you've got the right people around you, the right mentality, the right age, and the right amount of experience to put it all into place. And I just hope that the MA Honda years have not just knocked the edge off of that, and I hope that he can find his very, very best, because I think Taz's very, very best can be in the top 6 of World Superbikes, which would be great to see.
Yeah, I think Taz is a special talent, and sorry, doing the mic thing again. I think he's a special talent, and actually the thing that I admire most about Taz is the resilience almost and the graft that he's put in. So I would say like a lot of people who maybe don't know him or whatever look at it and think famous racing dad, both brothers go racing, whatever. Actually, I think it was probably the work ethic that they would got from Neil. So like Taz didn't start out winning races in British Championship. He started out like not qualifying for 125 races and has gone all the way through those ranks and progressed to the front of every class. And I think he's fully earned his position in World Superbikes, and on the package he's on, I just absolutely hope he gets the opportunity to be at the front.
I think that situation that you described there with the Honda days that have been so incredibly challenging for him, I think that probably would have forced a different individual to reevaluate and probably find themselves down a different path. And I think you have to look at, like you touched on there, you've got that family is just Taylor. I'm blessed. Taylor's a good mate of mine, and I've just spent a few days with him and Andy Lucia, and having not seen him for a couple of years, like spent time with him, and nothing changes. He's mad as a box of frogs, and they're just great to be around. And that's such a tight, close family. You know, he's constantly texting. We're laughing about various things, and he's texting Taz in the family chat, and you know, Taz has got the backing there of Taylor's always behind him, always there to brighten something up or make light of a situation that's probably a shit situation, but they'll find a way of laughing their way through it. And I think, without that and, you know, Neil's support and how he goes about things, because he's very black and white with things, very factual, they've had to work for what they've got, haven't they? Yeah. It's not, no silver
Well, I
spoon.
mean, he kind of he put it with it for a certain amount of time because of the MIE Honda's situation and lack of ability to be that competitive. They did have to pay.
Yeah.
So he was paid okay for the job in comparison to what other riders were, because MIE Honda had to pay riders to come because it wasn't the package to be on.
Yeah.
Any Ducati, you bring in hundreds of thousands because it is the thing to be on.
Yeah.
So, you know, Taz, he stuck it out for longer just because actually career-wise it wasn't such a bad option compared to other things. But that's the payoff, isn't it? That is the payoff. But I'm really pleased that he is now on a Ducati and it isn't going to cost him. I don't think it would possibly be the best amount that he's ever received in wages, shall we say, this season. But the costs are covered.
Yeah.
And if the costs aren't covered, as we've been talking about in the past, it could be up to £400,000 or £500,000. Well, I know I wouldn't have been a professional motorcycle racer. I wouldn't have had a career at all if I had to find £400,000. You know, my mum had to chuck in £15,000 for a CB500 and a CBR 600 year in BSB when I first started in '97, and that was a push. That was a real push. But that propelled me into Worlds, and then I got £30,000 in my first wages in World Supersport. You know, and anybody can survive off £30,000. You know, if expenses are covered, kind of thing, which they were, and that's how if you've dedicated yourself to something, and you're the best in the UK at it, and then you're being promoted into the Worlds, surely that's of value. Surely you shouldn't have to bring hundreds of thousands of pounds to showcase those hard-worked skills you've developed to do your job. Just doesn't make sense to me.
It's really interesting that you talk about that in sort of like your earlier career. I know that you're involved in working with Chloe Jones now. It'd be really good to get your take on just the sort of how you think the sport has changed from when you were doing it. So obviously we know the obvious things like, you know, £30,000 then is not £30,000 now, and things move on, things get more expensive and stuff. But you know, the dynamic of the sport has entirely changed. It feels like way more of a corporate machine now than it probably ever was. Am I right in saying that? Or
I think maybe because it was so dominant on alcohol and tobacco for the sponsorship, our little world was just rolling on the back of two, and motorcycle racing and tobacco and alcohol. That was our little world, wasn't it?
All went hand in hand as well, didn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah. but now we have to cast the net far and wide on trying to find a company that is passionate enough about motorcycle racing to put hundreds of thousands and millions of pounds into it to support it. And you know, since the crisis in 2008 as well, it's been so difficult since that period to make it work. And I think since 2008, as you've seen with BSB and World Superbikes, just the amount of money those paddocks have to develop the bikes, and actually how much of a budget is required to even do it. We all hear how stressed and how much on the edge every single team in BSB is to even get the trucks there. It's a worry. It really is a worry. And what they've done is they've relied on the riders to go out and bring the money that the teams used to find.
Yeah.
And the teams aren't able to find it. Well, why is that? Because it's getting to the point where it's too much to ask. It seems, for the level of return that you're selling. If we're going to be salesmen and saleswomen in the world, we need to be able to pitch something where, you know, people want to buy it because of the return that they're getting for it. And if it doesn't add up, then you're not going to get it. And we've just got to that point now where they're asking riders to pay £500,000 for a ride in one season, and it's televised on this channel. There's this amount of eyes on it, and the crowds are this much. And when you invite sponsors to a race and there's 30,000 or 40,000 people at the racetrack instead of 130 that there used to be, just even the sponsor having the emotion of what the event feels like that they want to be involved in, you know, so there's a whole ecosystem, isn't there, that needs to
But added
work.
to the fact with that as well, talking to a fellow Yorkshireman, used to be you could watch Eurosport for what, you know, or accessing and viewing it as a spectator on your TV wasn't an expensive job. Now,
£30 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to be careful on this subject.
I know, I was aware of that.
these are
Wasn't
our
going
bosses.
in my
To be fair, my Discovery Sport subscription at £30 a month is the easiest one to pay, because it's got the cycling, football, bike race, and actually don't watch anything else.
But
So for me, it's brilliant.
But if you put
for a
yourself
family-
in a position of a family with 2 kids and a dog and a mortgage, and what comes in is what goes out, and you're worrying about they're doing gymnastics, they're doing trampolining and swimming
getting them
lessons.
to watch darts, man. You could be the next Luke Littler.
You know, you draw a line somewhere, don't you? You say,
Well, that's where the sale and kind of return comes from. I remember when it was terrestrial television on MotoGP with BBC, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that the figures were about 1.2, 1.4 million people watching, because if it's on BBC, you've probably got 500,000 people just hoovering up and the channel's on
Yeah.
in the background. They aren't meant to put it on, but it's just been
a bit
on
of background
because
noise,
there was only 4 choices back in the day, you know.
Yeah.
And so they had that amount of traffic coming to it naturally.
Yeah.
Because obviously everybody paid for their TV license, and then everybody had that option to just turn the telly on and see it. Now you have to find it, and you need to be a fan to go and find it, to watch it. It's very difficult to kind of find the new audience if there's too much choice, and there is too much choice now. One interesting conversation I had was sports channels, especially the one I work for with TNT and Discovery, is as families, when we were kids, we got into the sports our dad watched because that was the only thing to do, was watch what your dad and mum was watching. You didn't have any choice with it.
Yeah.
Because you try and turn the TV channel over when your dad's trying to watch the footy or the bikes or the Formula One. So you had to sit there, and you got into, unknowingly to you, you got fascinated and passionate about Formula One, football, rugby, whatever it was that your dad was watching, because you had nothing else to do other than do what they did, right? But which kids do that now? They don't even sit with the parents anymore. They're up in the bedrooms on Instagram and social media, and completely separated themselves from getting involved in what their parents did, even down to music. You know, I'm a rock fan because my stepdad was a Queen fan. Queen's still my favourite band, and it's because he pressed play in the car once,
And
right? And I listened to it, and I was like, "Shit, what's this? This is amazing!" And it's still stuck with me now. We're not getting that with kids because the kids are so distant and separated from parents because of technology. This is one problem of getting youngsters into the sports and getting them, the next generation into the sports.
Yeah.
It has changed. The whole sort of landscape around our sport particularly has changed. We touched a little bit on the manufacturers and the fact that people don't buy superbikes anymore. They buy touring bikes and shopping bikes. or what we would call shopping bikes. Actually, I think, and we have talked about this before, but I think that it's generally perceived as a dangerous thing, and the generation of sort of like people coming through now don't see motorcycling as a route that I'm going to get in a car, or so it's not sort of amplified in that way. And then I do think that, you know, the introduction of these OTT streaming services are just different, but I'm sure there's huge potential with it as well, but it is just different. And I don't know, if I knew, maybe I'd be a rich man, but I don't know how you connect that to other areas. Like esports is one of the big things. Like esports massively drove a huge fan base of F1 but it's very similar. But there is esports in MotoGP, for example, but it's not the same. So that, you know, like driving a Formula 1 simulator is very similar to like what the athletes are actually doing, versus playing a computer game is not quite the same as a MotoGP rider.
Yeah.
But you and Christian hit the nail on the head with that as well. When I said, you know, bikes don't have the same following as F1. It's not as cars. It's not, therefore, the monetary value that's involved in...
MotoGP's getting there though now.
Yeah.
You know, 300,000 fans at Le Mans. And, you know, etc., record numbers of fans coming through the gate, and I'm not sure if that's on a global scale in comparison to Formula 1, but there are pockets now where I'm sure MotoGP does more business than Formula 1.
Yeah.
In pockets.
But everybody has a car. Everybody gets your driver's license, but the bike thing's a different thing, isn't it? It becomes a...
Well, one of the biggest things is the cost again.
Yeah.
You know, back in my day again, and it is relative. The back in my day thing is even more prominent now, isn't it? Of being a subject of a comparison, because, you know, talk about the first wage I ever got was 30 grand with Castellanda, right? Well, to get 30 grand these days is not easy, and the house prices and insurances and costs of motorcycles have gone through the roof, whereas wages haven't met at all that line of inflation. So when I was a kid, you probably get like a little 125 for 3 to 5 grand, less probably 1,500 quid, like a second-hand one, and you know the insurance was, you know, 100 quid, a couple hundred quid. So, and your kit, so you'd probably get a 125 and all your kit and ready to get on the road for 4 or 5 grand.
Yeah,
you know, back in the day, and now a kit to buy a 125 to even pass your test costs you I bet best part of $1,000 these days. You know, I'm not up to speed with the how much it costs to do your CBTs and your full license, but to the gear, I mean, you know, to buy a decent helmet these days, that could be 300, 400, 500 quid, you know, and the protective clothing. And I'm not sure if you can hear the weather through these mics. I'd be surprised if you can't, but for 6 months of the year, it's not really rideable as well. And it works against British riders to want to get into, especially the youngsters getting into it, because it's not convenient, is it? So it's got to be affordable and fun.
Yeah.
And if you take even one of those factors out of it, you're going to have difficulty in encouraging people to get involved.
I think that's why you see the number change. So if you sort of look at generations gone through from the sort of like 90s and of like superbikes, right, where it was cool, and it's sort of gone through, and like I rode bikes on the road for a bit when I had a bit of hiatus from racing, and rode with my dad and his friends, but they're in their like you know late 50s and stuff, so the gap's the gap's massive. And it's really interesting to watch it. And then when you pull up at spots, it's all old people. I'll rephrase, that's not old. It's older. I honestly think one of the things that'll change our sport massively is going to be like urban transport and electric, two-wheel, hybrid, whatever, but two-wheel transport in cities. I don't know the last time you like went through London. It's basically impossible unless you're on a bicycle. Yeah. There's no way you would go in a car.
Or an e-scooter.
Or a scooter or something, And I think there'll be, if there's investment in that is it's like a lifeline to people of our age, that it becomes an introduction and then potentially fun, and and so on and so forth.
But does that include you into this wonderful family of being a biker, and you ride down the street and everybody nods at you and you're in the club and you are welcomed in the club? Because when I ride down the street on a motorcycle and a scooter rider comes, I'm guilty of not nodding. And I feel guilty every time that those scooter riders and e-scooter riders, they're not in our club, are they? They'll never be welcome. And it's like,
But
I almost feel like I'm prejudiced against it.
But I don't think they want to be, because they're not trying to even be part of that community. Because
I did. When I was 16 years old and on my scooter, I hated everybody not nodding at me.
Yeah, but we're talking about a different demographic of people that is a tool for them to get from point A to point B.
Yes, but it could be the gateway drug, is my point. Right now, there is no gateway drug, is there? Gateway drug for motorcycles was the fact that you could, at 16 or 17, have some freedom and get out and go to work.
Sorry, I'm just imagining him going down High Street, waving
desperate,
at a bike.
Desperate
Just
for
give me a nod.
Desperate for an acknowledgement of a biker.
But do you know what I mean? It was almost like a working class alternative to not being able to afford a car. And as that's evolved, bikes have become like luxury items in a way. They're not something you buy to get to work on. I had a moped when I was 16 and like got suspended from school for wheeling it in and out of the car park, and I lived on it, but none of my friends did.
Yeah.
They just weren't interested.
It has to be affordable and fun. It has to be. They are the two fundamental things why you go out and buy a motorcycle. It's not for the convenience.
Yeah.
It's okay, some people do commute in cities, but how many people that buy motorcycles within the city to commute actually are backing up the industry with bike sales?
Not really.
You know what I mean? But I suppose people would argue against that, because the amount of like 125s that Indonesia and Malaysia and all those countries sell, because that's the only way you can get around because of the congestion in there. The bike sales in that market are the ones that are literally keeping manufacturers afloat. Nothing to do with Fireblades and R1s and
it's so funny because I went to Italy for the first time last year, and I've wanted to go for a long time. We've obviously been to Spain, and you typically go to Spain to do a bit of racing at some point. It's like the most accessible place if you're going abroad racing. And I remember going to Italy last year for the first time, and it was like going back 10 years from when you would go to Spain, and there was motorbikes
even
everywhere.
2-stroke scooters.
Yeah, and you're like,
keeping you awake at night.
I kind of get it now, and you just, it was a real reminder of, oh God, how different is how is the market?
Why is that not annoying anymore?
I know.
At 3 o'clock in the morning, a 2-stroke scooter coming past your hotel window. Why do you wake up these days and smile at it and just enjoy the noise instead of 30 years ago you'd be throwing a brick out the window?
we were just out on a cycling trip in Calpe last week, and it was fantastic. And every there's a lot of World Tour cycling teams go there in the winter, and there was people on mopeds, and there was one on a 2-stroke moped, and it had wheels strapped at the back following the guys, and I was just trying to cycle behind it for ages. My mate's like, you smoke? I'm like, just
still trying to smell the castor from behind it.
I'm like, get it in. But yeah, I miss all that. But you can see in Europe, certainly, like there is the market's different, and like you say, in Asia in Asia, the small capacity bikes are really big, and they do massively just prop up the industry.
Climate is a big thing. Climate is a big thing because in the Far East and in kind of the Asian countries as well, they have a motorcycle because they are not going to get wet through and frostbite by the time they get to work.
Yeah.
And in the UK, you've got to say, there's only 6 months of the year really realistically where you'd want to get on a motorcycle if you didn't have to. And if the market what's the market leader? Is it people buying motorcycles to commute on, or is it people buying a motorcycle just for fun and a weekend thing?
Yeah. Because
if that's the majority, then weather's going to make a difference in it.
Absolutely. And I think what I kind of hope happens is that some new technology will change things a little bit. I know you hate electric, but I'm not like this big advocate of electric. I get it, and I maybe accept that it'll be part of the future, or hybrid or something. That could just really flip the sport.
China could flip it. China are bringing some really good motorcycles. The QJ motor and the Cove and stuff like that are starting to come into the market, and they're bringing that difference back of inflation back to where it could be affordable and fun again to buy a motorcycle which is similar to the others. And I'm all for that. I'm sure some manufacturers will not be wanting a manufacturer to come in and bring everything down to be because of the competitiveness of pricing. But I think we do need some competition now for pricing, because no one's got 50 grand for a Ducati, or not enough people that we know, and no one's got 10 grand to chuck into a 16-17-year-old to get started.
But even motocross bikes, when we were kids, a brand new 450 was
3.5,
4.5, 5 grand maybe tops. What are they now? 10?
I'm not up to speed with motocross bikes, but it's nearly doubled.
But like you say, the
like
prices aren't there, the wages aren't there to back that up. And on your point, I do bang on about hating electric, and
I get it.
I do, because I just think that, and I'm prepared to be proved wrong in everything. I don't think that my opinion is exactly that. It's an opinion. It's not coming from fact. I just don't feel like anything electric has a soul. It just, you go and fire up a two-stroke to somebody who knows nothing about bikes, they'll like the smell of it, they'll be interested by 14,000, 15,000 RPM. They just, engines have to me, it's something that's alive.
It is.
I was prepping my bike to go to Spain, and I fired it up, did all the oil, got it all ready, fired it up. My little girl, my eldest's 7 now, and she opens the garage door and she stood there with her fingers over her ears, just smiling, just looking at the bike. Turned the bike off. I said, all right. She went, that smells so nice. And then I got the fuel out, topped the fuel up. What's that? I said, that's fuel. Daddy, that smells so nice. I've got a little junkie on my hands then. But you could see if I'd have done, I'm just going to turn the electric bike on.
It's two senses that we are attracted to, and like, I've got no problem about manufacturing vehicles that don't kick out CO2s to protect our planet. I'm all for it. I think we are risking some things with what humans are doing on this planet that could really shift our existence, right, and risk our existence on it for the future.
I agree, but I don't agree electric's the right way. Because if you look at the process for the battery job...
But electric's not in the right way in our world.
Correct.
They don't belong in our world of our show.
Yeah.
Our show is combustion engines that make a bloody good noise and smell like they do. And like, you don't buy an AC/DC ticket to go and see them acoustic.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
That's a brilliant analogy.
It's when you go to a MotoGP event and you record the start of the Moto E race and you record the start of the MotoGP race, it's a huge part of it, a huge part of the attraction. Like, I remember when I was a young kid and I went to Cadwell Park and I just started watching circuit racing, and now Mackenzie and Jamie Whittam come past on the Boost Yamahas, and you were so close to the track, you could even feel the breeze as the bikes went past. You
feel that vibration through your chest, don't you, as they go through?
And it gets you.
Yeah.
And it's those emotions that noise gives us, from music to anything that makes a noise in this planet. We get emotions from,
I fully agree, and it's something that we should be protecting. Like, I would love nothing more than my first ever 125 race back in my garage, and someday I will definitely buy one, and that would be my only bike I would have, just to start up and tinker on with. Like, I absolutely love it. The noise in terms of like the sensors and how it adds to the event, etc., I fully get, and I hugely want to continue. I guess my point, someone asked me the other day, why do you go bike racing? What is it that you do? My fiance is a good example. She hates it. She wasn't born into the world. She doesn't like it. And she asks me regularly, you've had loss, it costs a fortune, you come home depressed for days. Even after you've won, you come home depressed because you're thinking about how you're going to win next week, and you start panicking and all the rest of it. And she's like, why? And I said, it's not a why. It's a pure and utter need. Like, I actually, if I want to enjoy riding a motorcycle, I wouldn't go racing. I would go and do something else. It's the competition that I realise now that I massively don't want, need it in my life. Without it, it's a problem. Then I'd have to go and get it from somewhere else. I'd have to start racing bicycles or something. And if our sport went to a point where the only way to continue that competition was that it was electric or something that was different, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And if the next generation, that was the only option, and that's how they went racing, and the next generation beyond that didn't even remember the combustion engine era, that's just how racing would be.
That's how it would evolve.
But would it be as popular? And will it be as good a show as it used to be? I don't think so.
No, I agree.
That's all. But, we'll all be old farts with us, back in my day, and the nostalgia of everything that we talk about. It was better in our day and all the rest of it. But if it all goes battery racing and all the rest of it, I will go to my grave knowing that we had a better do of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure it won't, right? Or certainly maybe not even in our lifetime, right? But it'll evolve and change. And I guess I'm just saying I'm all up for whatever is required to continue the show.
Yeah.
Because
it is a problem, isn't it? Because if it is going to go that way, because we've got to remember that we are in the lap of the gods of government's policies that they're going to put into place of what manufacturers can sell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the business we're in. And then we showcase what the best of those are on the track. So like Suzuki, they pulled out because they wanted to go all green on the case, and they pulled out of MotoGP, and they won the last one they ever entered.
Yeah,
remember?
And they did go to Suzuka, not last year. They might have done it last year. 2020 was the full the eco bike. It's the experimental bike, which is it's running on tyres that are 80% recycled rubber. The bodywork's made from fucking palm trees or something. Everything, the fuels are biofuel.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, so they put Etienne Mass on from the CERT team. They brought him across and said, right, Etienne, you're gonna head up that team with 2 Japanese riders, and they entered what they saw as a sustainable bike. Finished 7th, 8th at Suzuka.
Was it biofuels or
biofuel? I'm sure it was biofuels.
And that's been around for
which stinks, by the way.
Yeah,
because we had one that raced at the last round of the World Endurance, and I followed it. I thought I had an oil leak.
Well, aren't you burning off all potatoes and carrots and all the rest of it? So it's not going to.
It smelled of. It
like
smelled,
a chip shop.
It smelled like you've been on a Saturday afternoon, isn't it?
It smelled like a transit van. I thought, fucking hell, I'm on fire here. And I'm checking down, and then I realised it was this R1 in front of me running biofuel. Stank. Just smelled like oil.
As long as it can sound the same.
Yeah,
but it did.
The
It
noise
did,
is
and I do. That comes back to that thing about. I think there are ways that you can keep the combustion engine going, and I think we can do it.
Yeah.
In a cleaner way.
Yep.
I on a larger scale, I've listened to a million podcasts where they've talked about the process of your lithium batteries has cobalt in it, and to mine for cobalt, it's basically slave labour. It's horrendous for the environment. What people have to do to get the cobalt out of the ground.
No, we've already got synthetic fuels and biofuels that don't kick out CO2s. We've already got that. It's not mass produced, unfortunately, so it's expensive. Yeah. That's the only reason why we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Even on the roads, we haven't transferred from that to that causes no problems with emissions, because oil and gas will rule.
Yeah.
Until I'm dead.
Until it's not. That's the problem, and it's the.
Well, that's then when governments have to make an incentive, don't they? Guys, you need to put X amount in.
They're trying, but then you get a president like Trump, and he pulls out the Paris climate agreement and all the rest of it, and you're pushing against it a little bit. We've all got to be, when it comes to looking after the planet and the CO2s we kick out, we've all got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And if we're not, it ain't going to work, because especially for us as well as a blip on the map.
We are, and that's the factor, isn't it? We are of no significance to Donald Trump isn't making any decisions based on what
I'm not criticising Donald Trump as well.
No, we're not going down a political route.
No, he wants to do it his way, and he's looking after America first, and he thinks that's going to get them out of the debt that they're in. and it's always been the most profitable business, hasn't it? Oil and gas. So he's drilling and trying to generate as much as he can to try and get the trillions down and all the rest of it. But if a country or a region like America is not on board with it, then it starts a competition off again, doesn't it? And if you start competing on selling oil and gas, well, you're not going to get to the green place where we want to be. So I think motorcycles as well, compared to for how many cars are on the road globally, we've got to do everything we can, but I'm really conscious about governments and policies that they bring in place on not going too far that kills the possibility of manufacturing motorcycles to kill our show, because it could. It really could make it very, very difficult. The industry is very difficult to fund anyway at the minute, but if manufacturers haven't got an opportunity to sell what they can with a profit margin that's required to keep everything ticking along, it's a tricky business.
Given that dynamic now, and sorry, we digress because we started talking about this and then I somehow got one to politics, but I didn't mean to, sorry. Given that dynamic now, mentoring Chloe, and I guess it would be really good to talk about that as well, but from the time when you would have earned your first 30k work as a professional motorcycle rider, how you went about that to then maybe getting a manager, and I know you famously worked with Roger Burnett, how different is even how you approach that situation now versus them? Because maybe talking about 20 years, which in the grand scheme of things is not a long time, but I feel like it's a chasm in terms of the landscape of the sport. Like how are you maybe addressing that with Chloe versus how you?
Yeah, it's tricky. Fortunately for Chloe, she did what I did when I was 16 years old. I came into the CB 500 Cup and the Supersport 600 Cup in the UK, and at 16 years old I beat everybody in the UK, and it was such an unusual thing that someone so young came into it and was doing that, riding at that level. I didn't know I was doing it, I just came on the scene and that's what I did, and I was lucky enough to have the talent to be able to do that with a great team with Mick Corrigan by my side. And Chloe's done exactly the same. She's a bit older, she was 21 last year. And Brent Gladwin, same as Mick Corrigan did for me, always ran a fantastic team for decades. Gave her the platform to where she can showcase her talents, and she finished third in the World Championship in her first season. And just at the beginning of the season, she broke her arm, and she couldn't really move her wrist that well through the whole season. So she was battling with that. And she still beat Maria Herrera and Beatrice Naylor and all the rest of them. And like I say, to finish third in the world, when she rang me in November and said that Brent Gladwin's going to retire from racing, all of a sudden I haven't got a ride and I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. Would you help me out? So ringing a few people is not a problem. You see, I know everybody in the industry kind of thing to pick up the phone to, and they'll pick up. Hopefully, they'll answer when I ring. not do that. But Paul Denning was the obvious choice. British team who already ran Beatrice Naylor, who finished second in the world in Crescent Yamaha. So I asked him, would you consider running two riders? And basically he said, if you can make it work, then I'd consider it. And then why I had spent loads of time with the Lowe's brothers was Alex Lowe's wife, Corinne Lowe's. She's quite high up in Monster Energy. And she just off her own back called Paul and said, look, Chloe hasn't got a ride. So this was separate to me. She just rang and said, I've heard Chloe hasn't got a ride, but if you want some support, because Monster are looking for some female athletes, if you want some support to run, if there's a possibility, let's talk.
Because they've pulled out of World Superbikes, haven't they?
So they've come back in for Chloe.
Wow.
Which is something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Monster have totally pulled out of World Superbike. I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
At a team sponsorship level or an athlete sponsorship
but everything. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
There any reason for that? It seems like a...
I don't know. I think they're just wanting to consolidate and just put all their eggs into one basket with MotoGP.
Okay.
I would imagine, and possibly other sports, because it's such a global thing crossing over so many different sports.
Yeah.
It only takes kind of like a new manager coming in that doesn't really kind of, why are we doing two motorcycle races? let's just do one.
We just go for the Premier
Better.
Class.
Yeah.
So is that Chloe's now a monster athlete?
She's a monster athlete in the Crescent Yamaha team with Beatrice Naylor. I think they're going to spread a little bit of funds out, so it looks like Beatrice has got some monster sponsorship as well as
my
teammates.
next question was sort of, is that running into the team as a whole then?
I think so. I think because they were looking for female athletes, so obviously, Beatrice second in the world as well.
Yeah.
So it's two great scalps for Monster. But a massive thank you to Corinne just having that initiative to ring up the possibility exactly at the time when I rang Paul about it. So we were able to make it work because of that. And but like the similarity between me and Chloe was someone coming into a world championship that we were talking about before that's got that kind of talent, that finishes third in the world in your rookie season, should deserve the best ride in the best team to go for the world championship.
Yeah.
And that's what's worked out. But sometimes in racing it doesn't work out that way, does it? But I'm really pleased for Chloe that it has done. She's in the best team arguably, with great sponsorship, a great profile, a great look, being a monster athlete. Oakley's come on board as well, which is great. So it's I'm really super excited about it. I helped her with that, and then basically Chloe, because of that, she went, would you consider managing me? And I've never done it before. I've never managed riders. I've managed a team with Danny Webb, which was an amazing year. But I've never managed an individual. Roger Burnett, as you say, for me, did such a fantastic job of my career. He was Neil Hodgson's manager, and now Ryan Vickers, and one of the big names in the sport for doing the best things for their riders. And he was fantastic at it. And I thought about it, and then I said, let me just ring around for you, because it needed a bit more support than what we're getting to make it work, kind of thing. So let me just ring around. And when I was ringing a couple of my old friends and sponsors that I used to have in the past, and I was like, Chloe Jones, she's finished third in the world in the first season. She's got a real chance of becoming a world champion, the first ever women's world champion in the UK. She's only just turned 22. And she has a real chance, if the Women's World Championship stays as it is in World Superbikes and keeps a good profile, there's a chance it might even move to the MotoGP paddock. Who knows about that? But as long as it stays the MotoGP for females, which we need it to be, because every other sport's got it now, let's keep it separate. Let's keep the women having an opportunity to be the best in the world.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing. And like I say, first one world champion, and she could be a multiple world champion, Chloe Jones. And if she is, her name will be as big as mine, bigger than mine, Jonathan Ray's, Foggy's.
Yeah.
She will. She'll have that kind of profile. And I thought, on the back of, she's just a really nice girl, really super switched on, committed. I've seen how she goes about her business. I've seen how focused she is. And because that's essential for me. I find it very difficult on trying to get a rider that's finishing 10th in the world to try and help out, to try and turn that into first. I don't know if I've got that amount of time personally on my hands to put into somebody other than my son or my daughters.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Comment. Yeah.
She's there already with an half broken arm doing it, right? Finishing third.
Yeah.
She is in this team going to be battling for the wins, and hopefully the first win, and hopefully for championships, without me doing anything. All I've done is given an opportunity of the platform. There you are, you're in Paul's team. There's the bike, great engineer at the side of her. Go and get it. And I know she will. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. So me as a manager, all I'm there for is really to support through the difficulties of motorcycle racing.
Yeah.
When she's had a crash, she's a bit hurt. Shall you go out in the second race or not? Hopefully falling to sleep the night before on Saturday or Friday in Jerez, and waking up and you're going to go for a world championship.
If she hasn't already wrapped it up.
Or wrapped it up. Or whatever it is before that then.
Yeah.
And knowing the emotions, knowing how to process it all, knowing how to stay calm, knowing how to get the job done when you need to get the job done, and knowing how to kind of cope with all those pressures and expectations. Because in Brent Gladwin's team, as a rookie, finishing third in the world is the easiest, most fun way you'll ever go racing, because you didn't expect
Zero
it.
expectations.
Zero pressures.
No
It's
pressures,
wonderful, isn't it? We've all been there. And now you're in the fact, it's like when I raced for GSC Racing and I finished third in the world with them, won a race in Oschersleben, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I got promoted into the factory Ducati team in 2004 then. Bloody hell. I couldn't understand them at breakfast, lunch or dinner because they all spoke Italian. And I was like on the end of the table and like you were just the next guy to win from.
Yeah.
Because Bayliss did, Foggy did, Corsa did. So it's your turn now, mate, because, if you can't do it, we'll just get the next one in.
And the expectation is to win, you're there to do that.
Oh, yeah. Is there completely different way of going racing.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a very... it's a switch from it being... I want to do this to I need to do this.
Yeah, but it's a completely different way about going racing. It goes from being a hobby to being a job.
Yeah.
And the trick is to try and still keep it feeling like this is a fun hobby, because that's when you get the best out of yourself in motorcycle racing, when you're happy and fast and relaxed. But when the pressures are on your shoulders, the nerves of the expectations can weigh on you so much that it's impossible to get the best out of yourself. And that's one of the things that I'll hopefully just pass on a little bit of experience to her. I introduced her to Kirk, who trains all the guys in Derby, a personal trainer down there, and did a session with him, with Chloe, and Leon Aslan was there in the session because they all live in a similar area. And like she realized just how hard they train.
Yeah.
Even with Leon Aslam, who's I think he's claiming 35, but I think he's about 40. But still to see Leon train like he does, fair play to the lad. He is over 40 now. I was around that, and still challenging for British Superbike Championships. Me and Leon started his careers together in the Scooter Championship 30 years ago, whatever it was, and to still see him now as hungry as he is. So to introduce Chloe into that world, to see just what the best do in the wintertime, in the flat track riding, of what they do there, and in the gym, what they do there. So I'm able to introduce it to, right, you've got the talent, you've proved that, you've got the team now, you've got the bike and you've got the engineer, and now you know what to do in the wintertime to prepare for the first race.
And do you think that's the difference in mindset? So you've gone into a championship, you've finished third in the world, you've had this amazing experience, people are talking to you, Monster want to be part of your story, etc., etc. You want to be part of the story, and then now I'm going to win. What's the is it in the preparation? Do you think that the difference between she probably wasn't going last year thinking I can win the world championship, but this year she's very much going in, I'm trying to win the world championship,
and there's an expectation that she should be challenging for it.
Yeah,
but the trick is not to kind of approach a season like that. I've said to her, if you do the flat track training, you do the bike training in the wintertime, if you train like this in the gym, and if you approach your racing in this certain way, on being organised and consistent with what you do each weekend, each day, it will happen. It can't not happen.
Because you've improved yourself on what you did.
If you do those things, it will happen and should happen. Yeah. If it doesn't happen, it's usually through bad luck and an injury. But if you start your career off in third in the world with the preparation that you put into that season and the injury, etc.,
which wasn't that she didn't put preparation in, but she didn't
just
know they needed the guidance of putting the correct preparation in.
Yeah.
It's like so many young racers, they don't know what it's life. It's life's lessons, isn't it? You wish you knew now, when you were 18, what you know now.
Absolutely.
And it's
I thought I was fit, and then when I joined GSC Racing, I went with I run with Neil Hodgson for the first time in South Africa. Well, I didn't see him after 2 corners. And I was panting my arse off, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I thought I was in shape, and I was in shape, but I wasn't world class in shape.
It's really interesting to see that, because I actually seen on Strava that Chloe can run a 5k in sub 20 minutes, which is fucking difficult to do.
Yeah.
And you're saying actually we're introducing her into this other environment where the level is here again, so it just shows you the difference in level. I do think that fitness has a massive impact on your mental preparation as well. So there's probably like an optimum level that you require physically to operate a motorcycle at a certain speed, and I think anything thereafter, and the level that people train to now is like elite level athlete, not just as a motorcycle racer. it's got to be more for you, just mental, as much as your mental kind of capacity than anything else, isn't it?
Well, I tell you why training hard and properly is so important. Obviously, cardiovascular fitness is really important, and your strength is really important. But training to the limit regularly, what that does is build your resilience up to be able to withstand life's things that it throws at us, to be able to cope with it, deal with it, and make the right decisions at the right time with it. And when you're riding motorcycles at 200 miles an hour and it's hot, humid, you got your leathers, helmet and boots and gloves on, and it's lap 20 of 22, and Troy Bayliss's Ducati's just behind your MG at the hairpin, and you can hear it every single lap, and he's putting you under that kind of pressure. It's the resilience that you've built to be able to go, I'm fine, right, mate. I've got this.
I'll do another 20 of these, pal.
Yeah. And it's that what training properly gives you. It gives you the ability to cope with things in really high pressure situations, to making the right decisions. And it's not just those last couple of laps that fitness kind of helps with to get it across the line to the checkered flag, of course. But it's also, it's amazing how fewer mistakes you make from lap 1 to lap 22. And it's the speed of thought and the consistency of thought and the calmness that you can calculate things at, because you're used to working at that level.
Yeah,
it replicates it.
It's just a funny story about which sort of has no relevance, but I just could think about it then. Was we sat down with Canepa a few years ago, and he said when he'd stepped out away from he'd have been in World Superbikes, I think, going to EWC. And he'd been to one of the 24 hours, and he watched David Checker get carried off the bike at the ends of the stints. And he said, I thought, fuck me, this is what I'm going into. I'm going to have to train so hard. He said, that winter, I trained so hard. He said, just every day. I've never trained like it. He said, well, we finished Le Mans, and he said, I knew I had to train to this level, because, when I saw how you were having to carry David off the bike, they said, he broke his fucking leg. He was riding with a broken ankle. He said, I didn't need to do this then. He said, never train that hard ever again.
On the topic of that, before we go on to Patreon questions, and also wanted to chat about our episode sponsor as well, we touched just before we kind of like came on the air before about your wrist, which is... It's awful to say, but it's almost like a famous wrist in a way, because it's the thing that ended your career. And I remember not long after, I think you might have been riding BMW. I remember you talking about it.
That I crashed on for it.
Yeah.
With the injury, yeah.
Yeah, like after that time and explaining that. Because we hear of injuries all the time, right? You think a wrist break, like fine, I'll be back next week. A leg break, people snap their femurs and off as if, and you think, you don't particularly associate them with being career ending, because it's such an integral part of what you do on a motorcycle. It was. And I don't know if we've maybe talked about that in detail, and I know you've had some sort of like work done recently, so it'd be good to just understand.
Yeah, in 2011 in Aragon, I just high-sided. It wasn't the worst crash ever, but I did this really badly. And in Spain, they just diagnosed it was a slight fracture, and I'd be okay in a couple of weeks. And it was just before Donington round, so I thought, perfect, I'll be back for the British round. But the pain that night in the hotel was just off the scale. And as riders, when we do get injured, we can pretty much diagnose it ourselves with what the pain is telling you. And I knew that it didn't add up. So I rang the surgeon in Manchester. I said, look, would you mind me just coming in, just double checking this, because it doesn't feel like it's a slight fracture. He was at a wedding that day. So he said, okay, I'll pop into work, I'll x-ray for you, and then I'll have to get back to the wedding. Anyway, he comes in with a cravat and the suit on and everything, literally. Like he looks at the x-ray, and literally as he's looking at the x-ray, he's taking the cravat off. And he said, look, I says, you've got a devastating injury on that wrist. He says, you've flipped the bones over each other. No fractures. That's why they didn't notice it, but they didn't notice that the bones had flipped. So they're in a certain order, but just not the right order. He said, if we don't operate it, you could have a paralyzed wrist within 24 hours. So he had to then do the surgery, and so I'd gone from a slight fracture to all of a sudden, and he did say, he said, I'll do my best with this, but this could be devastating and you might not get any movement from it. So it was a shocker to hear that. And then that's what started this journey off. And I had the first operation, and unfortunately the bones just slipped when they'd healed in the wrong place still, so they couldn't fold over each other, so I didn't have any movement hardly in the wrist. Tried to come back at Silverstone, and it was so frustrating because at Silverstone, because I could just ride like that with a fixed wrist, I was still pretty fast. I was like fastest in the session on FP1 sorry, in that for a long time in that session. So
I remember you riding like that. I remember standing at Vale watching. I was working at Silverstone. I remember watching you coming down into Vale, and that is exactly how I remember thinking.
Yeah, oh. And because Silverstone's so wide and fast, I kind of got away with it off. And then I went to Nürburgring, and it was raining, and I was trying to ride like that in the rain, and obviously went off you go. And I was crawling across the track, and I realised, well, if I can't ride in the rain, I'm just going to be able to sign and ride in the dry condition. I'm thinking, no, this just won't work. So I had a really difficult decision of making the call to retire, because it was like finish 10th with this wrist was more difficult than just finishing completely with what I'd done, kind of thing. So, and then the problem is why it became such a story was because I kind of chosen a certain procedure to not fuse it initially, which they were wanting to do because it was so badly damaged. I tried to keep a certain amount of movement in it to carry on my career and life, because I played the piano as well quite seriously, and the fuse wrist was a disaster for that as well. I thought, I don't want to lose both. But because I chose that, it was a problem. Because any movement in a problematic joint causes pain, and the pain was off the scale. I mean, I couldn't pick the kettle up or even brush my teeth for a couple of years. It was so painful.
A couple of years?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I'm sat here now, 15 years on, and I had 10 operations.
Christ.
In total. The 8th operation was, the 7th operation was to fuse it to end the ordeal, because every operation was in hope of trying to get it to be in a place that I could do things again. Mm-hmm. And they tried different variations of the false wrists and stuff, but they all failed, unfortunately.
So was the bone essentially irreparable, and you have some sort of like...
They were in the wrong place. There was so much ligament damage within the bones. The ligaments didn't keep the bones in the right place, because all the 8 bones, when to do that, the mechanics in here is just incredible.
Right.
How they all fold over each other. But if one just slips, it can't fold over it, and it locks it.
Right.
And that's what happened.
So what you had done recently then, was that is that like a final operation?
I had it fused on the 7th one because I was in so much pain and discomfort, and I was on opioid medication for so long that life got pretty bad. Like, life got really, really bad, because years went by, 5, 6 years, 7 years, to where the career had definitely gone then.
Yeah.
So all the 3 or 4 years at the first of trying to have operation after operation was to try and get back on a bike again. But then the 6th, 7th operation was just like, well, that's gone now, and I'm now just trying to patch up the best I can with it. And life got bad. Let's just say that life got really bad. Yeah. So the surgeon said, please let me just fuse it. Please don't put yourself through any more than this, because if you keep on down this road, it could cost you. So I fused it, but unfortunately, it wasn't discussed that the plate that they put into a wrist when they fuse it is cocked up like that. So your hand sits slightly upwards like that for the convenience of you picking things up and stuff like that.
Okay.
Didn't have that discussion at all, unfortunately. So when I woke up, fused, fine, didn't move at all, wasn't ideal, riding completely gone now, any chance of a career completely gone now. The realisation, and that really sunk home. It was horrible, that kind of like putting an end to it. But then I couldn't play the piano because the angle of my wrist meant I had to play like that with my shoulder to get onto the right angle of the keys, and I could only play 1 or 2 songs before my arm was done, aching. Like, yeah. And I was desperate again then, because the one thing I never want to not be able to do in my life is play the piano. Mm-hmm. So I rang around the UK. Nobody would unfuse a fuse wrist because it was fully... when they fused it with the plate, then they take the plate out, and then the bones all fuse together, and it's just one bone in there, and it's locked solid, and that's why they call it a fuse wrist, because everything just fuses together basically. Yeah. So I did fuse with a plate, then I had to have the plate removed to see if then the flexibility slightly comes back to be able to play. Yeah. Couldn't.
So is this like Operation 9?
This is operation 8. So
Okay.
7 was fused, 8 was plate out, wrong angle, ringing round to try and find someone to cut the bone in half to give me some joint back and a different angle on my wrist. No one to do it in the UK. Found a specialist in the States, in Austin. Went out there. He said, "Yeah, I'll have a go at it. It's difficult, but I'll have a go at it." He cut the channel in my wrist, but because it's been fused for 2.5 years, he says, "I'm a little bit worried that your muscles are dead now, that you won't even be able to have the muscle to pull your arm back and forward. So I'm just going to cut a gap which is as wide as I can, but if it's too wide, you might end up with a limp wrist." Which I was accused of quite a few times in my career. But so I'm saying that this was the 9th operation, and because it wasn't quite wide enough, the bone still touched as it was healing and fused back together again. So then I had to go back to America again for the 10th, and at this point in time, as we sit here, the final time, and now the wrist sits flat instead of being up like that, so it sits flat. I've got a little bit of movement, that's what I've got, but that's better than nothing. But most importantly, when I sit to the keys, I can have that kind of angle to where I can play again. So 2 days ago, I was down in St Albans meeting some new band members, possibility of getting the band back together again and playing some music and performing again and trying to get that back, because I've missed it. I've really missed performing. So, who knows? We might be back on stage again soon.
Oh, fantastic. That's really good news.
Yeah.
So there's nothing really, sorry, I feel like I'm like proper rubbing salt in an open wound here, but there is, do you think there's going to be, I'm surprised there's not some sort of like joint that like joint replacement that.
Well, the hips, so successful.
Yeah.
Like the false hips now are better than what we've got originally.
Yeah.
My mum had hers done, and honestly, she was like, "This is better than the other one." And you're back on your feet in the same day, and you're sprinting around the kitchen within a couple of days, kind of thing. It's unbelievable how successful that is. The knee joint's getting better and better and better. That's almost as good as what we've got naturally. But unfortunately, the wrist,
There's just so much going on.
Maybe
there.
too complex, and
it just hasn't. I don't know if it hasn't had the resource like the others have had the development with, but I am hoping maybe in 10 years' time there'll be something like the hip that is as successful for the wrist, and I might be able to have that done, and I might be able to just get a bit more range and less pain, because if I just keep it in that range, it's not so bad. But if you push it through the range, it's like I've broken it still. So I have to be really careful with it. Yeah.
You'd like to think, you see these incredible robotics that are coming in.
Yeah.
With the standalone robotics, but also the things that you see them putting on hands on people who have lost their arms and they're able to control things. You just
I don't know how I can play with that. I don't be like RoboCop playing it.
No, but internally, you don't know if they're going to come up with something internally that would replace that whole joint with something.
They will. They're going to, aren't they?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was just not in this little period of my lifetime. That I've just lost 15 years of my life.
I mean, it does speak. It's a huge topic, and we will get onto Patreon questions, I promise. But it is a huge topic for when like top level sports people have injuries, and they're almost like invisible to the naked eye, right? Like, yeah, you had a physical injury, but I had no idea, for example, the sort of level of restriction and the pain that you'd have gone through. I think, if you look at Shaky, for example, he's maybe like another one who's got that, and I know his career was maybe a little bit longer than yours, and it happened to him later down the line, but I do believe that he would still be racing at a high level if he wasn't for that injury. And to the naked eye, like, you can't see it, can you? But
no. So, well, some injuries are hidden, aren't they?
Yeah,
to people, even if it's just a mental illness, it's you got to be careful with them.
And I think to the sort of general public, people assume like, oh, like you've won world championships, you've done well, like you're okay with that. But actually, there's a huge other side to it, isn't it? And this need to perform and do stuff is will probably goes unnoticed a lot of the time.
Well, we talked about, you and me sat down and did that bit for fast bikes at Donington on a Sylvan Barrier Day, wasn't it, like a couple of years ago? And before we started recording that, you and me went down a bit of a rabbit hole, and that thing of just because you can't see it, the battles that people are going through at home, and just it's something I worry about with our sport as a whole, because you can't talk about it because it's a weakness, so you better fucking get on with it and put on a brave face. But you just worry about the lads, what they are going through
Yeah, the problem is
from-
with motorcycle racing, it's so fun
Yeah.
and it's so addictive that there's going to be a difficulty not doing it in many, many ways, and that affects people in different ways. And I was forced to stop, and it was cold turkey, and with a right wrist injury so devastating that you can't even hold the throttle. It's done, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I was overhearing a Troy Bayliss and Max Biaggi conversation in the hospitality suite just after they'd retired at 41ish and 42, and they were talking how difficult it was to cope with it, and it was interesting because their level of not dealing with things very well was on the same level as me. And that helped me a little bit because I thought I was worse done by than them because they got another 10 years out of it. But when I listened to them talking and how difficult it was for them to cope and live without it, I realised I was going to have to cope with what I was coping with, whether now or then.
Yeah.
So I thought,
arguably they had 10 more years of the drug.
Have the drug.
They were an addict for 10 years longer.
And also retiring at 42, then have you really got the energy and vigor to create something else again?
Remake yourself
again, or are you just going to slowly just retire and find that difficult because life just does that? Yeah. At least I was 29, 30 years old with a need to start something else up because I can't just kick my feet up now, and so it was really interesting to hear that. But it's anything that we're addicted to on this level, that it gives us emotions to that level. It's all the relative issues on the come down is the same, whether it be like we're talking about with heroin or motorcycle racing. It's these that they're not natural emotions that these things give us, and we're just desperate to keep hold of them.
Should we do some Patreon questions?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, go for it. I tell you what, before we just jump into the patrons, we want to talk about our episode sponsor, actually, if that's okay. So HGC Paintwork, and I'm just checking because I always get his initials the wrong way around, but I'm going to hold up this helmet because I believe that he actually did paint this helmet as well, or certainly one of many. But so Hayden Gibson, he's a good friend of all of ours and does paints our helmets stuff, and he's actually branching out now to do things like more kind of custom bodywork and stuff like that. And am I right in thinking, Grace, that he's doing a giveaway? So if you're a Gamma patron, which is like a £10 a month patron of Chasin the Racin, you can get entered into a draw to win a free helmet painting. So we'll obviously put all of his social handles and things in the chat. But yeah, go check him out. Have a look at the work he does. Does a fantastic job. Got my helmets painted off him last year as well, and he's done Chrissy's, Joe's.
Done mine for about 4 years now. He's mega.
Yeah.
I just give him free rein. I just give him a blank helmet and just say, "Do your thing, mate. You know what I like. You know what I don't like. Just make it look good." And I get a different design every time. It's cool. Yeah. Keeps it fresh.
Really great, and it's fantastic to see him branching out because I think it's not his full-time occupation, and if he can sort of get to the point that he can, then that would be fantastic for him. So yeah. All the best.
I always think as well, it took me a while to find someone. I always thought painting a helmet, it's going to cost me, 3 times what the helmet cost to buy in the first place, and it's not the case. Give Aidan a shout. He'll
sort you out.
Yeah, sorry, he's mega. He's mega. Just he's loves motorbike racing. He does it for the right reason. He's just a legend, isn't he? Which is such a nice lad. So yeah,
important. So
yeah,
great stuff. So yeah, speak to Hayden. If you're also not a Gamma patron yet, get joined up because chance to win a free helmet painting, which is great, and you'll get all of the additional content that you get along with that. So great stuff. On to the Patreon questions.
Phil Wright, as Brits, I'm sure we all loved watching you perform and win on the big stage, and for that we thank you. What was your most exciting circuit to race on? My favourite was watching you guys all dicing around the Curva Grande at Monza. Was that as scary as it looked?
Oh well, yeah. It was Monza was really, really special. It was one of the first racetracks that I ever went to outside the UK, and you drive into the circuit and it's in a national park in the Italian village or town of Monza, and because it's in the middle of the park, it always has a certain resonation of the sound of the motorcycles in the trees, and there's not a track on the planet that sounds like Monza because of the length of the straights. I think we were flat out in top gear for 7 or 8 seconds. So if you can imagine,
It's unheard of now, that isn't it?
Yeah.
it takes a while to get to top gear on any track, doesn't it? But imagine getting to top gear and then sitting on it for 8 seconds before you're on the brakes for the first chicane. And because of that noise, and thinking, it's like someone's throttle stuck. and it just goes through the trees on a certain tone. And you have to go to Monza just to experience that, whether you're going for Formula 2, but just go to Monza and just kind of like just experience that, because it's a special place. And if you kind of go and see the old oval as well, I mean, the steepness to that last corner, because you've got the Parabolica, which he's talking about, which is the new final corner, which is incredible. But just on the outside of that is the original oval of the modern circuit, and like you struggle to walk up it. It's that steep.
Oh.
And when you think of the 40s and 50s and 60s of them with the chin on the tank completely flat out at God knows what speeds, with tyres as wide as that mug, it's
Open face helmet.
Nothing really on the head. Yeah.
No, it's incredible. Monza's great.
That probably leads on to Rob Kirk's question actually very well. So he's asking, if you were to do a Super Pole lap now, which track would you choose? Which bike would you choose? And also, what song would you play over the PA system?
Good one. I don't think you ever got as big a fulfillment as getting a decent lap than Laguna Seca.
I knew you were going to say that, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why you were going to say that.
And it wasn't the case until I rode MotoGP there with qualifying tyres. Well, it shouldn't have been allowed.
But the crowds aren't huge, are they? Or are they?
No, nothing to do with the crowd.
Just the
it
experience.
Was whizzing past the wall at 220 miles an hour, whilst the bike had took off over crests. And when you're on qualifying tyres on a MotoGP bike and you held your breath for one lap, you're glad it's just for one lap.
What would you play over the PA?
probably something a bit calming, because it was so on
Try
edge.
and bring you back down.
You didn't want Motorhead on it like that, that'd be too much. You want a bit of Carpenters or something, just to try and bring the vibe down, just so you can cope with the whole situation.
Richard, I don't know what your surname is. Hi, thanks for all you do. James, if you're a team manager, who would your rider lineup be?
Ooh.
Maybe pick over the last 50 years and choose 3.
Oh, crikey, the last 50 years.
It's basically a free reign for...
Yeah, I'd kind of like the...
It's like your fantasy league, isn't it? Yeah.
I kind of like the challenge of trying to manage Foggy, but I'd probably get to round 2 and wish I hadn't. But, he was such a competitor that I would enjoy managing someone that wanted it so much, because I was like that. So I'd want to kind of connect myself to riders of that nature. And all the top riders are like that, you've got to tick like that. But Foggy would be one, just because when I was a teenager and starting in racing, he was the hero as well. He'll always be a hero of mine. Who else?
Would you put Max in that category? Because I can imagine he was probably difficult to...
Yeah, but...
you raced against him, so you knew...
But I'd rather an overconfident, in-your-face, talk it like it is Foggy than an overly complicated Italian with a book full of excuses
and a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, kind of vibe. And I'm not dissing Max Biaggi at all, but
I don't think he listens, to be honest.
Hey, you never know. Yeah, you never know.
He, as far as riding a motorcycle goes, as the style, like, there is no one better. Even now, when Max Biaggi was rocking and rolling, like, the way he rode a motorcycle was just unreal. I followed him a few times and I was like, wow, like, I'm struggling to hang on here, but he just never missed an apex to beat, and just so smooth. But it was a bit difficult to work for. I think he came from a stock and he was so good, and the challenge between himself and Rossi when he first came, and he just turned into a bit of a prima donna because Rossi always kept him there, which made him a difficult character to work with. I heard on I never worked with him obviously, but so no, he's not one of the riders I'd choose. Kevin Swans, because he was my first kind of hero, and he just seemed so cool that I know I'd just have fun managing him because he'd get on with it. He can do the business. So the fun side, Kevin, the challenger Foggy. Was it 3 I needed to pick?
3.
3.
After that, because you'd be arguing, probably getting pissed quite a lot. You just want the calm on, wouldn't you? You'd want Johnny Ray.
Yeah, but you don't get calm champions. It's just not two personality, or it's just not a personality trait you get with a champ. Unfortunately, it's difficult to manage a competitiveness of that level that you want and need to win, and you've got to as team manager. That's why great team managers can be flexible about how they work with different riders that require a certain thing. Like I was saying, the great ones, they know if they need to put an arm around a rider, or if they need to kick up the arse of the other rider to get the best out of them. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I am just about to manage Chloe, obviously, and her first race is next month, and like I'm looking forward to, hopefully, with what I've provided for her, the opportunity that I've provided for her. Like I'm really looking, because I know I'm going to be quite emotional if she wins a race now. I'm fully invested, if you know what I mean. And I think that's the special thing about being a manager. You can make a real difference to whoever that you are managing, because that's your role. Like Davide Tedozzi, old rider, he knew exactly how to be with different people. Look at him now with Pecco Bagnaia and Marc Marquez. I bet you can't imagine the difference of how you navigate trying to get the best out of those two. So it's a fascinating, difficult job. But what was the other one? So it was which 3 riders managing? There was a couple of other questions that he wanted answering along the way with it, or was it just which ones I'd manage?
What bike would you choose to run?
Yeah.
And what would your home track? What would be your home track to allow you to obtain the best performance?
Oh, crikey. I mean, Brands Hatch was always special,
It's the best track in the world, I think, Brands Hatch.
But one of my first races around Brands Hatch, I got lapped. So it took years for me to enjoy driving through the gates of Brands and shake that off. Carl Harris, remember Carl Harris, bless him? He lapped me in Super Teens.
I actually heard that on the previous episode.
I bet you did.
Saying that,
Bet you did.
not that it sticks in
the last cup of tea I'm making. But then to win the double at Brands in front of all those people and all the rest of it, so Brands Hatch, because of Superbike's double, not the lapping, getting lapped in 1996, and the bike, I'd choose which colour was the best, because I ain't picking a dog. So if it's Ducati, if it's Aprilia, it's Aprilia, if it's KTM, KTM. But if it was one of the bikes I used to race, I think I'd pick the Honda, just because 250 million horsepower from Tenkate with no traction control was bloody fun.
It worked, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry, mate.
Michael Harrison, we touched on that. That was about the World Superbike and BSB rules, but thank you for asking. CJ Pepe, is there anyone else on the current World Superbike grid who could possibly make the same jump as Toprak has done to MotoGP?
Bulega's the obvious choice. Bulega's the obvious choice. Let's see what Ika Lecuona can do. When Ika Lecuona was in MotoGP as a teenager and finishing in the top 6, a lot of people forget just how good he was at such a young age on a satellite KTM, I think, one year at the time. He's ridden on Honda for a few years with Vierge. Since Vierge jumped on that Yamaha with Paul, I've spoke to Paul a couple of times, and he's been on it. So I'm not sure if that Honda Fireblade was just suppressing the capabilities of those two riders, and we're going to be able to see just what they are capable of on decent packages. Obviously, Ika Lecuona on paper's got a much better opportunity on the factory Ducati than Vierge has on the R1 as it sits.
Yeah.
But you never know how much development they're going to do through the winter, and we'll see at Phillip Allen in a couple of weeks. But if Ika Lecuona jumps on that factory Duke, and he has got that kind of potential and natural talent that he showed all those years ago, and he gets psychologically the better of Nicolo Bulega, let's see. Is Nicolo Bulega going to be as good as he has been for the last couple of years without chasing Toprak?
That's a very good point, actually.
Because he needs someone to keep him honest, doesn't he?
Honestly,
yeah.
I I'm saying that because I know all about it. When I was trying to chase Bayliss round the tracks a couple of times, and like I got my fishing rod out, but it was tough, really tough. And on a couple of occasions, right, we were doing lap times that were like lap record pace every single lap when we were travelling around. There was one at Donington and one at Assen. I remember looking at the lap times going, oh my God, and we were pulling away from third like a second a lap a time, you know, and I was doing it. And I was holding my breath, but I was doing it. And a couple of times Bayliss fell off in front of me. Well, could I get anywhere near the bloody lap times?
Really?
No chance. I was half a second, 0.6 off instantly.
Biting the screen to try and do it.
No, I was riding as hard as I thought I could, but without chasing Troy.
Yeah.
I just couldn't find that performance. So, is Nicola Bulega gonna be as dominant as we think, or is he gonna kind of like ride without that carrot, and then the others are going to be able to catch up with him? It's going to be interesting to see.
We've only got a couple left.
Yeah, there's a couple in there. Sorry, so Ty Kinton's question. Do you think World Superbikes will miss Toprak this season? That's question one. Then maybe we'll just address that first, actually.
That's a yes.
That's a yes.
Yeah, it's a yes. Obviously, I mean, Toprak Razgatlioglu for the last, 5, 6, 7 years that he's been in the paddock is been our Valentino Rossi. It's just been incredible.
Yeah.
What he's achieved in 3 world championships he's kind of won 50. He's won 50% of the championships since he's been in the game, and so it just shows you just what natural talent he was.
The level.
And doing the stoppies, doing the showcases thing, just being a gentleman, just being a great guy, wonderful person, and an ambassador to the sport and himself.
Yeah, I think he is going to be. I totally agree. I think he's going to be a huge miss, but I'm also very excited seeing him in MotoGP. Like, it's coming already, isn't it? He's starting to see the times and stuff. He's was top Yamaha at the Sepang test, wasn't he? So, do you expect any?
Well, yeah, top Yamaha's 15th at the minute though. So
yeah, but
him and Christian think he'll be on the podium this year. I've said I think his absolute best. I said I think if he gets in the top 5 at any point this season, he will have done exceptionally well.
I just think it's if the package allows, right? The packages, we talked about packages in World Superbikes. In MotoGP, it's even worse. Like the level, the difference, the discrepancy is massive. But he's capable. I think he's a legend. Like, he's going to be.
It's not started off well because it sounds like Quartararo sounds like he's almost put pen to paper with a Honda, right? So he's already fell off and hurt himself in this test. If the bike's flicking him off a second and a half off the pace, well, we know that
that's not going to feel good.
That calmness in the garage is not going to stay long. And if it all starts kicking off, and the factory riders don't bring on this V4 quickly, it's not going to filter down to Pramac. And if everybody's a second and a half off the pace and crashing and hurting themselves, it could be a very, very difficult situation this year. It could be. I just really hope that Yamaha get a bit fortunate and find something in this brand new package that they can just about make it seem possible to be competitive. Because when you go racing in MotoGP with a slow bike and you've got no chance, after you've finished in the top 2 of World Superbike for years, it is so demoralising. And you don't have the discipline to not over push and hurt yourself. Yeah. It's happened to many over the years. So I just hope that the V4 can push on before the season starts, just to give the riders something that they can hope for in the future, because we all know that all this year is a bit of a kind of a stepping stone into the 27 new rules. Yeah. You know, and so the V4, if it can kick on, and then the Pirelli tyres come into their own with Toprak's experience, then we'll see. But are Yamaha going to be able to develop this bike quick enough to keep Quartararo and people like Toprak? Yeah. It's going to be a tough job for him.
Be interesting to see how it all unfolds for sure. The second part of Ty's question was, do you think getting rid of Supersport 300 for larger capacity bikes is a good idea?
I do, yeah, because it's been great for the racing, because when you've got as much grip as horsepower, it's easier to get the most out of it. So that's why you've got 20 riders all challenging for the podium, because you don't need to be as talented as the other guys to get the same results on those bikes, because they're easy to ride essentially. But the one problem is a little bit of safety. If you haven't got a certain amount of horsepower, when you're slipstreaming in the gap in the air, when you pull out of the slipstream, if you haven't got a certain amount of horsepower, the bike can't push through the air naturally. Yeah. So when there's 4, 5, 6 riders all in slipstreams and then they go into the corner and they all fan out like that, they stay side by side. Yeah. and then side by side, 4 or 5, 6 abreast, it's always going to be a little bit dangerous. So we just need to up the horsepower a little bit just to make it a bit safer for overtaking, and also it'll separate the talented ones from not so much, and then you can clearly
It doesn't always feed well, does it, into riding a super sport bike where, like you say, there's more power there. They're not learning the right disciplines, so they're learning a massive amount of corner speed, but they're not learning about throttle control because it's just
you're pinned.
I think the sport bike as well, it's not too dissimilar. There's still 100 horsepower.
Yeah.
So it's actually, it's not like you're getting on this big animal, but it creates that the difference, but also in terms of the way you ride them is still going to be very similar. So
the racecraft it teaches them is incredible, because you've got to have such wit about you to go into a corner 10 meters to the left or right because you've got no other choice, because there's 5-6 riders side by side. I mean, the final, the races have been incredible. I mean, the finale in Jerez between Beñat Fernandez, Carter Thompson, and David Salvador, like off the scale. Trying to commentate on that, and like the championships changing every corner on the last lap. That's what we want, right?
Yeah.
So we want to keep some of that, because that's what racing's all about. But we do need to make racing as safe as possible for everybody.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. Sorry, the last question here is we've actually kind of touched on this already, Jake. So, but Jake's point is around the discrepancy in World Superbike and BSB, and it being hard for young talent to come up, but is addressing the fact that it's. Do you think it's even harder because of the influx of sort of Spanish and Italian talent that comes through, and maybe their accessibility to it?
We've always had the problem with Spain and Italy, because it's on national television, it's in national tabloids, and because of the exposure that it gets in those countries, it's up there with football, etc. It gets a lot of investment. Anything that has a lot of investment always trickles down from the top to get to the bottom of some level. And now, because in the UK it's very difficult to get on any news channels, any sporting channels on that level where there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people watching it, the money that generates is always going to have a knock-on effect on how it's supported in this country, and it's shown. We're only a small island, so also for manufacturers, they don't really desperate for a British rider as such, because of how many bikes we sell, compared to France and Spain and all the rest of it. So we're against the industry a little bit as well on that. So there's all kind of factors that come into play, but the weather as well, we talked about it, we joke about it, it's our favourite subject in the UK, but from like December to February, if you can't literally get on a racetrack because it's too cold or too wet or too snowy, and the Spanish are on there pretty much every day, going around these go-kart tracks and flat tracking and all the rest of it all through the winter time, when you hit the ground at round 1, you're going to be on the back foot. And the riders are starting so young these days, that the restrictions in this country as well for how the age that you can get onto tracks and stuff like that, it is an issue, but we know what they're doing. So it's just, if you've got an opportunity to at least keep up, and that's not easy, because it's not cheap to take your kid out of school sometimes and go to Spain and do all the training and testing and stuff like that. So logistically, being a motorcycle racer in the UK, to try and keep up with the Europeans on all of the factors that I've just said, it isn't easy to try and keep up with them.
It is interesting to see that there's in your era of World Superbike, it was actually really heavily dominated by Brits, wasn't it? And then even maybe just the few years after that, at one point, like most of the Laverty brothers were there, Chaz Davies, like
Tom Sykes, Johnny.
It was actually a huge grid when Alex first went. It was like a huge grid, wasn't it? So it is interesting to see the change, and I feel like there's more GP riders coming into it now, because as we touched on before, right, the gap from World Superbike's there. If this is the gap between World Superbike and MotoGP, actually between BSB and it's this way, right? And actually that move's probably easier than that move. So it is just it has totally changed the dynamic of it, hasn't it? Yeah.
Well, obviously, with Leslie Graham winning in 1949, the first ever Grand Prix winner, right? The British rider, and the Isle of Man was the first ever race, kind of thing. The heritage of the UK with British manufacturing as well. Let's not forget the manufacturing of motorcycles in this country was huge when it all first started. So we have always been in the top 3 of interest, generally, as far as the whole ecosystem of motorcycle from manufacturing to racing goes, and the amazing success that we've had from riders, from Mike Hailwood to Jeff Duke to, from the very beginning.
Yeah.
We've been so successful, and because of the heritage of that, there has been a level of kind of exposure for television and for press, to where it brings the next generation along to want to do it, because we know that we can succeed at it. There's proof that British riders win, so naturally the kids want to kind of emulate their heroes, don't they?
Yeah.
And we've had a 6-time world champion not long ago with Jonathan Ray, so we're still right at the forefront of this sport, which encourages a lot of people in this country to want to get involved.
Sorry, mate.
There was one last question from Andy Ryder. Hi James, in your World Superbike years, what would you say the best and the worst bikes, and was there an absolute shed? Enjoying the technical commentary at World Superbikes, which I'll second that. I think, yeah, you're very good at the commentary job.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Cheers.
Because it's not as easy as what people think it is it?
No, it's not. But talking at speed without having the chance to think about what you're saying straight off the bat, it's different.
You could lead now.
Don't tell Greg that.
Well, no. If Greg's ever poorly, or you could lead, because I sit and listen and I think, yeah, you can lead now. Definitely. But heaps of shit you've ridden and good bikes you've ridden.
Oh, just personally, what I've ridden.
Yeah.
The worst bike I rode, I think, for as far as competitiveness was a Cagiva Mito in Super Teams when I got lapped by Carl Harris on the Aprilia RS. When he passed me on that Aprilia RS, I realised that the Cagiva had kind of seen its time.
Yeah, it was not the thing to be on.
It was a bit of a relic at that point in time. So that would be the worst bike I've ever competed on. And the best bike that I competed on, I was lucky enough to win on 2, Ducati and Honda, and both those manufacturers gave me a bike to achieve my ultimate goal. So I couldn't pick between those two because they gave me the chance to achieve that. So
mega.
It's kind of like a personal question, but it's not. 2 things. How much do you, when you became World Superbike Champion, your life obviously would have changed a bit. Did your life change more becoming World Superbike Champion or becoming a MotoGP rider?
Ooh, MotoGP rider.
Do you think just the elevation of what Grand Prix was, I suppose? It
was just how bloody busy you were.
Oh, it just...
Because you went from like 11 rounds...
to 20.
European based mainly, to 19, I think, when I was riding. But it doesn't sound much different, but they were kind of like, most of the additional ones were flyaway races.
Yeah.
So you're on an aeroplane and in an airport and away from home for like 7 months of the year.
And all it is home, airport, track, hotel, home.
Yeah.
You don't see anything, do you?
No, and it was just, do you know what it was? It was a different existence.
Yeah.
You existed differently in MotoGP as a competitor, as an athlete. You were riding motorcycles around a track, so that was the same. Trying to win, that was exactly the same. But just the way of life. I just found myself in airports all the time. And the worst part of the job is in a security queue, checking a bag in. I don't know if it's just me or not, but if I ever questioned my life choices, it was always in a security queue, because this is back in the day before we had all the entertainment on his phones and all that of it. You had to do a proper 90s style where you just stood there,
looking at each other,
thinking about stuff. Yeah. Looking at the guys, clothing choices in front of you, so it was a drag. It was a real. The amount of time away from home, because the amount of time away from home as well brings a certain psyche to life, and the disconnect from reality. Because of how busy you are and how much time away from you are, there is a different reality that you're all of a sudden living. With the superbikes, there was a balance. Coming back home to my mates from school, seeing my family, sitting down, having a cup of tea with my gran, and playing the piano a little bit, and going to ride racing, winning a few races in superbikes was wonderful. And it still is a wonderful balance with 12 rounds with superbikes. MotoGP now 21-22. I'm not sure how many relationships are still strong with everybody working in that paddock. I'm not sure how everybody doesn't feel in the winter time a little bit cabin feverish because they're not used to being at home.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It brings all of that with it when you're away from home a certain amount of time and you've taken a certain amount of work on, and you're traveling on your own a lot as well in life. it will bring a certain psyche to your existence, and that was the biggest change for me.
Just before we'll wrap up with thanks, I was thinking about this question on the way down. Nothing to do with motorbikes, so excluding any like family members and stuff like that. What is the one thing in life that you couldn't live without? So if it got taken away from you, you would sacrifice everything else for this one thing.
My gran.
Oh, that's fair enough.
That was easy.
Yeah.
I'd want my gran back.
Fair enough.
I will forever want my gran back. But if it's a thing, not a person, it's a tough one, because I would have said a bike before I was injured, because that was my only thing to stay sane. But now I'm kind of an age where I don't necessarily I have not got a need to ride fast anymore, because I've weaned it out of my system to get to live okay. Is piano.
I was going to say, I think that's sat in your living room.
Give us a piano.
Quite a big, yeah. So
it's really interesting. Why I was thinking about that question this morning is we were saying about listening to music in the car. It would be the only thing that I couldn't live without.
Well, I said my gran as well, not my mum, because mum's still here, right? And if my mum's going, cheeky little bastard, if she wasn't there, she'd be in the group as well. So I just want to just level that out.
It is really hard, that, because I'm certainly not a musician. I played the trumpet for a year when I was in secondary school, but not very well. I'm certainly not a musician, but actually music is just the one thing I could never not
do
have
without.
on. 100%. I would choose music over television any day of the week.
It's sound, it's noise, and that's what we're talking about with the racing.
Yeah.
Right? There is certain noises in life that just make us feel alive, and whatever your choices are, whatever your genre is, it's got to be a part of your life, isn't it?
Right. A big thank you to all of our sponsors, as always. Obviously, welcome on board to WSC Performance, and a big thank you to JCT Truck and Trailer Rental. And there's, as always, we've still got some merch and things going on the website, so check out the Shopify store for all of the merch. We've still got books and various new bits of merch that Grace is working on. We do still have an opportunity on the main sponsor board, so if anybody is interested and wants to get in touch. And another way to get amazing content is to become a Patreon member as well. You can get early access and to some exclusive bits of content. So, and a massive thank you to our guest,
James. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure as always, lads. Pleasure. Thanks for coming up again. Maybe in another 4 or 5 years I'll have some more stories again for you.
It's been a blast. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks for listening.